It is, we are, and one more time, good morning on a Saturday. I'm Peter Boyles, May the 3rd, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS. The weather on a Saturday is beauty. My bike's outside. Sunny, warmer, and 77 tomorrow. Sunday, gusty winds and 78. And then good, the bottom drops out. Scattered storms. Monday, 60 degrees. We have a show this morning. A book that I just finished, and I normally don't do sports, although we did it last Saturday with Joe Williams. The book is entitled Charlie Hustle, The Rise and Fall of Pete Rose in the Last Glory Days of Baseball. What a tremendous book. And this guy is really a gifted writer, Keith O'Brien, and he did Fly Girls, if you remember that book. And Pete Rose was a legend. I got Mike Boyle on hold. We'll talk for a few moments with Mikey, but about Pete Rose and watching the end of that. And then perhaps the most significant part is this report has come down. It's from the federal government, the Federal Elections Commission, United States of America. You can go to our website, 710 KNUS, Peter Boyles, or 710KNUS.com, Peter Boyles, and there it all is. And it's a lengthy report, and it's damning about the Colorado Republican Party and what they did with the money and where the money goes. And it alleges Dave Williams improperly used lots of party money for congressional campaigns. Other names show up in it as well, but we have Dick Wadhams coming up, and followed by Steve Reams, the sheriff of Weld County. In the meantime, and in between time, the man with a plan, Mike Boyle. Everybody thinks we're related, and I say we are, and he says we're not. But you're one of the biggest baseball fans I know. Have you ever seen this book, Charlie Hustle, about Pete Rose?
I have not, but I'm about to go to Amazon and have it delivered. I'm looking forward to it.
What a book! You
and I, of course, grew up with Charlie Hustle, and he's of course dead now. But no, I'll be looking forward. I pardon the pun, but I think we're going to get a little inside baseball.
Well, it's less about baseball and more about him.
Yes.
It's Sparky Anderson. It's everybody. That's the Housams. And I've been telling people they don't know this, but Bob Housam is the reason why KHOW is KHOW.
KHOW.
That's right, because of the Housams. And they were they were the big red machine, were they not?
Well, they were. And don't forget that Bob Housam, if I recall, back in the 40s and 50s, owned the Denver Bears.
Yes, he did. And I got to know his son, Bob Jr., really well, and we were good friends. And but all the stuff about what was taking place with Marge Schott in Cincinnati and Pete Rose, and how he really goes from like this hard-nosed kid till he becomes an addicted, what they call them, degenerate gamblers. And that's really what he was. Mm-hmm. And the guy makes this case. In the end, he said they said he starts out as a ball player who was a gambler and ends up a gambler who happened to be a ball player. What a line.
Friends of mine in baseball said that all he had to do was say yes, I did it. That's right.
Yeah. He could not sit in. It was all of those legendary commissioners, and they brought him into their office in New York and said, "Did you bet on baseball?" And he said no. And then they turned it over to an investigator whose last name was Dowd, D-O-W-D, who he had no subpoena powers, and they never talked to Pete Rose, but they had a strong argument because he really could not defend himself. They had the slips, they had the witnesses, they had everybody. And all he would have had to do was say, I did it. And in the end, at the end of his life before he dies, he starts to come to terms with what he did. But what a story. I mean, and I'd forgotten how many of those great ball players were in that time period. Wow. I mean,
Well, I'm going to be tuning in. I'm going to be listening, Pete. I want to hear the story. But if I can segue.
Yes.
I was coming back to the house, listening to Caldara, And I want to thank you for enlightening Jon Caldara, because Dad's daughters, they've got us wrapped around our little pinkies. And I came to the daughter party a little later than you, but I remember a couple stories that I'm going to share with you that I think will hit home. One is our good buddy, Mike Rosen. Mike Rosen, two beautiful daughters, Lynn and Jill. Well, he's a little ahead of me. I've still got a kid in college at the time, and I'm saying, boy, I'm looking forward to it, just like Jon Caldara. Looking forward to it. It'll be the end. And he said, Mike, it doesn't end. And I'll never forget what he said. I said, do you get to spend much time with Lynn and Jill? And he said, only if I promise to take them to Hawaii.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I remember Rosen saying that. That was a great line.
And Harry Simon, a very well-known attorney in Denver. I've worked with him for years and years. A wonderful, wonderful guy. 3 daughters. He calls me up, and he says, Mike, I want to take, this is obviously a few years ago, he says, Mike, I want to take the family to Mexico for Christmas. And he said, he said, can you help me? I said, Harry, I can help you a lot, but it's expensive. And he said, I know. I said, so it'll be, of course, you and your wife, Audrey. Yes. Well, you're going to, he says, I'm taking the 3 girls. I said, okay. Well, I said, well, the oldest one is married. And he said, yeah, her husband's going to come. I'll pay. And a couple kids, I'll pay for that. And I said, well, the middle one has a boyfriend. Yeah, she wants to bring it. He says, Mike, I'm going to pay. And so I said, well, what about the middle one? She's got a boy. He said, Mike, I'll pay. Mike, you need to figure something out.
Yeah.
If I want the family together, I pay.
Of course. Of course.
And so that said, I just became a grandfather on March 13th, Peter Boyles.
Hang on.
And
now it's going to get really good.
And I am going to get to see that little critter here fairly soon, because we're all going to gather together in Mexico. So, you know what, Jon Caldara, I can tell you, yes, the college tuition, some of the big stuff might stop, but it will shift because there always are daughters, right, Pete?
I say, I have a grandson, and when he was born, Mark Twain had a great line, and I used it in a column, that why grandchildren and grandparents love each other so much is they share a common enemy.
Yes, exactly.
Great Mark Twain line. And you'll find yourself, and you become friends, and it's a different boogie. I mean, I remember my grandma lived with us, and she was from the old country, and she was a mean little woman, but she loved me. As far as I knew, she loved me. But but we're different. Grandparents now are different than they were then. But being grandma and grandpa, it's pretty cool. You wait, you'll really like it. You got to pick a name, Mikey. You got to pick a name.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You got to pick a name the kid's going to call you.
Oh, you know what? I haven't given that any thought. That's something I'm going to have to think about.
He can call you grandfather, which doesn't fit you. I'm I'm Pappy.
First of all, he's a she. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll
pick a name. Pick a name that you have. Like all kind. Grandmas have better names, but they do. Grandmas have really cool names, but you can have
Nana and all of that.
Yeah, and that's cool stuff. But pick a name, and let that kid let it filter, and it will be her own choice. But you're sunk because it's a double boogie because it's a girl and a granddaughter. You're done.
Yeah,
you're sunk.
Yeah. Pete, I've already reconciled that in my head. I've already resigned myself. So, but anyway, I appreciate it. And you know what? I watched you with your family, and I know what a wonderful grandparent you are. And so, you know what? That's one of the things that I think you need to do in this life. I think you need to watch people that have done it before and that you want to not duplicate, but replicate. And so, I look up to people that are good grandparents, and yes, we will have a common enemy because my daughter has already said, you know what? All those things I thought about parenting that were so easy, they're a little bit more challenging when you're in the game.
Oh yeah, I mean this is all payback. You know that. I mean it's just really
absolutely.
That's all it is.
And you know what they say about payback?
It's
a B word.
There's a B word, and it is all the guys, all the men who looked out the window and saw you pull up in that Corvette that wanted to strangle you before you hit the driveway, just wanted to shoot you, and the legendary Nick Bockwinkel, the world's heavyweight wrestling champion, he always had a great line. He said, when a guy came to call on his daughter, now remember, he's Nick Bockwinkel. He said, I wanted to cuff him. And I said, why, champ? He said, and then I'd say to him, that's for what you're thinking. A great line. That's for what you're thinking.
Pete, you're going to have a great show. I'm going to be out there.
We're going to go get him. Yeah.
Love you, man. Thanks enough a lot.
All right, Bubba. Thank you. Mike Boyle, everybody. All right, 303-696-1971. I'm Peter Boyles. It's Saturday morning, 77, sunny and warm. Gusty winds and 78 tomorrow, 60 on Monday. Now, coming up on the show at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock, the book Charlie Hustle. And I picked this book up, and I'm normally not a sports book reader, but Pete Rose, whether or not he belongs in the Hall of Fame. And as Mike pointed out, all he had to do when he was sitting in that man's office was say, I bet on baseball. And he couldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. And he probably, he by his own estimation, lost $100 million after not doing that. And ended up being in Vegas, being a greeter. And then after that kind of folds, then he ends up being a autograph guy, gives out autographs. And then COVID hits, and he ends up almost where he began on the Ohio River in Cincinnati with his dad, who must have been a hard-nosed guy. But it's the rise and fall. And he puts a tag on this called The Last Glory Days of Baseball. And I mean, I don't know much about sports and no less about baseball, but it really makes sense what he talks about, what happens. And so he said, in the end, he said, for an extra $35, Pete would write special inscriptions right above his signature. And he signed the same inscription night after night and day after day, show after show, town after town. This is how the book ends. He signed it, and he signed it until he could not sign it anymore. I'm sorry, I bet on baseball. Wow. What a story. And, of course, the Marge shot part of it, but the Big Red Machine, the Howsams, and it's more than just, balls and strikes. It's the life and times of Pete Rose. And so we'll do that at the top of the hour, and then start with Dick Wadhams. And this report has dropped, and you can begin to get ahead of it. You can read it. It is the Federal Elections Commission, United States of America, Colorado Republican Committee, the monthly, quarterly, they go down a list of things, registrations, and they start financial summaries. And they begin, this is a very lengthy report. Thank you to Mark Crowley. And if you can wade your way through it, you can find the Colorado Republican Committee, the recipients, the spenders, the disbursement date. These are disbursement numbers. And then we have, and I don't know if Mark got this up, I think not, but this was a bootleg. And this is the part that was the most damning, and it came to us. And it's about the company that was held by Dave Williams. And this stuff is sad. And it's almost like reading the Pete Rose. Matter of fact, I see some similarities between Pete Rose and Dave Williams starting out one way, but this is the Fox Group Ltd. And the Fox Group is owned by one person, Dave Williams. And when you start to see the disbursements of amounts of money to he and also to Randy Corcoran, it's a lot of money, at least a lot of money in my world. And these guys, and it doesn't say whom, it just says, for instance, Colorado Republican Committee, Fox Group Ltd. Description, Chairman Consulting, $8,000. Next one, Fox Group Ltd. Chairman Consulting, $8,000. Next one, Colorado Republican Committee, Fox Group, Chairman Consulting, $8,000. Jump ahead. Fox Group Ltd. Chairman Consulting, $6,000. And it goes on. Deferred payment, $10,000, Fox Group. So what he has done, in essence, is paying himself. And what, consulting himself? And it's just, I mean, it's really, really, really rough stuff. And so Steve and I, and he's filling in for Capless next week, and one of the things that was said to me on Friday when I was billboarding the show, well, have you called him? And I went, they don't return our calls. We don't exist. And when I look at this report, and he left Dave with Dave left Steve Reams with a pretty atrocious retort, and I will wait for him to come on the show and tell what he says, what he was told, which I think gives carte blanche. So I think that's about it for the career of Dave Williams. I was very unsure that he would be hired by the Trumps, which he thought he would be, but after that situation and the scenario with the flag, the gay flag, Trump's not going to bring him in. And now after this, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what charges, if there are any, to this. But boy, oh boy, it's not good, at least in the world that I live in. So we got calls, but what we got to do is we got to just take our break, and we'll come back and we'll begin calls. So it's sort of open lines, 303-696-1971 at 10 o'clock. The book, Charlie Hustle. Really, really, really like this book. And already the text messaging is flying. Peter, the reason they don't answer because Salem KNUS is massively bigoted and fascist station, and it should be quite obvious. It's all right. I work here. Yeah. All right. We'll take calls right after this. Great song. Glenn Travis Campbell from Delight, Arkansas. Playing it for Chuck Seraph. Malignment for the County. Great tune. 77 will be the high and 78 on Sunday. Rain comes in on Monday. All's well in the world. We have a line open. We'll start with Don in Lakewood. Hey, Don, thanks for calling the show and good morning.
Hey, good morning, Pete. Nice to chat with you this morning.
Thank you. Get off your speakerphone if you would.
Hold on 1 second.
Get a feedback, you guys, if you're on your speakers.
That better?
I don't know. Let's give it a shot.
Technology, cell phones. Actually, I was on a headset. Sometimes they're good,
Okay.
sometimes
Same
they're not.
thing.
Hey,
Same thing.
quick question. What got this stuff stirred up about what'd you call it, Fox something or other? Sounded like a slush fund Corcoran was involved in.
I don't know if Corcoran's involved in it, but certainly when you...
Well, you mentioned his name. His name.
He's been... Hang on a second. He's on the list. He's the third name on the list of disbursements. Randy Corcoran, PC, on 1/13/25 for $22,000. And then on 3/29, $17,493. That may be for that lawsuit that they're filing. And then it jumps to consulting fees to Fox Group Ltd. Again, and again. So, in the Fox Group one, which I'm saying is, I think, the most damning one, he's paying himself. In essence, Dave Williams is paying himself.
And where'd the money come from?
Contributions from people like you.
Not me. Are you talking Republican Party?
Yes.
Republicans?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay. And these were funds that were contributions that were solicited by the people involved?
Best of my knowledge.
Huh. Interesting. When did this all start shaking out? This is the first I heard of it.
No, this fight goes back over a year ago, but the federal report came. I got it sent to me Wednesday. And I don't know much about how to take things apart on computers, but I have lots of help. And so you can go on the website right now and read it. Go to 710 KNUS, Peter Boyles, and there's the Colorado Republican Committee, but its headline is Federal Election Commission, United States of America. You can read it.
So if there were some laws broken, would these be deemed, maybe you can't answer this, misdemeanor or felony?
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if a law's been broken. I just think it's interesting that he's been paying himself to be his own consultant.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a polite way to put it, I guess.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a radio show anymore on 710, does he?
We quit trying to get him on here. No, he's not on here anymore. No.
Yeah. Good for you guys. Anyway, yeah, I was just curious. I caught the tail end of what you were talking about.
You can read it. I mean, don't go to the violations or read the violations or read the complaints or read the report from the government. Don't listen to me. Go to the website, 710knus.com, and read it. Sit and take it apart.
I'll check it out. I have one other quick question for you.
Sure.
You ever talk to Casper?
I haven't heard from Casper in a while. No, I haven't.
Quite a while. He's kind of dropped off. I haven't seen a peep out of anything about him.
First of all, he's a very good man, and he can't catch on. It's hard. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. He has his own set of ideas. I used to see him at some of the Republican get-togethers and chatted with him about stuff. And
he's a good guy.
He was always fighting a hard fight. I met him with, remember Derek out of the Springs? What was his last name?
Got me.
He's out of Chicago. He had a DVD he came out with. I saw him at a Tea Party meeting. Derek Wilburn, something like that. He was a pretty classy guy out of the Springs. That's where I met Casper.
Don't know. Sorry.
Not a name that rings a bell. All right. You have a good Saturday.
You too. Thank you. 303-696-1971. This is Francis in Golden, Colorado. Good morning to you.
Hey, Peter. Hey, I want to I'm sure you already have thought about this, but I want to caution you when you're dealing with the Dave Williams of the world, because as we learned through the election denial, many lawsuits and things, they don't let facts get in the way of a good filing. And I suspect that what went on was probably scuzzy, but not illegal. And it's the exact type of shenanigan that Dave Williams and Randy Corcoran and those folks would bring up on the radio and point fingers about and scream bloody murder about, and it's exactly this type of nonsense.
Well, if you remember this,
and just remember, truth's a defense to defamation. I don't want you to get in trouble.
No, listen, I like I just said it a moment ago, I don't know if there's been any crimes here, but this is very distasteful.
For sure.
He's paying himself, and this is the one that we have the receipt, and I've got to dig it up on my cell phone, which I'm not very good at, but here's the company. The company is called Fox Group Ltd, and it says agent name Dave Williams, and it gives an address. Sure. It gives an address of 3869 Pronghorn Meadows Circle, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Now, when you go to disbursements in the Election Commission, you'll find, without a name, on the corporate one it has Randy's name. Legal services, $22,000. Legal services, $17,400. But on this one, it just says Chairman Consulting, $8,000, $8,000, $8,000, $6,000, $10,000. Chairman Consulting. Well, who's the chairman? The chairman's Dave.
He was.
And he's paying his firm, so in essence he's consulting himself and getting the money from campaign contributions is how I see it.
It sure sounds that way. I can't remember this specific situation, but I do remember those two particularly talking about almost the exact same thing in a Democratic context as being just the primarily worst thing that could have ever happened. And it's just, this is a desk in his home, and he maybe managed to set up an LLC or something like that where he's running the money through.
In fact, it's an LTD. It's called the Fox Group Ltd. And it's.
I'll have to read this stuff because this sounds like I mean, come on, dudes. This is just, look, it's just crooked. It may not be illegal, but it sure as hell is crooked.
Well,
and, I don't want to hear any more of their pious nonsense. I just don't. They're just full of baloney. They just are.
And the weird thing about it is this, if I remember correctly, and Dick will remember, and of course the sheriff will remember, this is what they accused everybody else of. What's the great line of the left there? Is that the left always accuses the right of doing exactly what they're doing, and they use it as a shield. And so I don't know what they paid Randy $22,000 and $17,000 for legal services. Maybe it's the lawsuit to keep people.
I suspect that's what that is.
Yeah, to keep people
and I think they were successful in the one. I mean, but. I don't know. It's still just taking money out of one pocket and putting it in the other.
Well, come on. Taking it out of one pocket and putting it in another guy's pants. But because
I'd like to see the billing. I'd like to see the billing on that.
Well, you can see
I
that.
really would. I'd like to see exactly what was billed. I'd like to see what the law firm billing was. I'd like to see what the consulting billing was.
It doesn't. I mean, it has a number. On Randy, legal services $17,493.56. On the other one, legal services, just $22,000 flat. When you get to the Fox Group Chairman Consulting, they're all round numbers: $8,000, $8,000, $8,000, $6,000, $10,000. You would think that, when you get a bill, it's $27.19 or something. This is just round numbers, $8 grand, $8 grand, $8 grand, $8 grand, $6 grand, 10 grand.
Somewhere they better have invoices. I'll tell you that should, and it should show what amount of time was spent doing what.
Like I said,
at what rate.
You're going to have.
I mean. That,
but this is, and I'll wait for Steve at 11. But what he told me last night and this morning, because he's going to be hosting Dan Caplis' show Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at KHOW. And so he, they put him on Rhino Watch. They did all kinds of underhanded stuff to him. And so now Dave Williams gave him this response about blaming the new chair, taking no responsibility for himself. I think he's, all intents and purposes, but you never know with the Republicans. I think he's done now. I think this could be.
It'd be hard. He's young. I mean, he could come back. He's made that ridiculous thing that he sent out on the website or the email with the his eyes look like he's possessed by a demon, and the anti-gay stuff, and God, that was the most distasteful, disgusting thing I've seen in years. I mean, how do you overcome that?
He believes that people, and there are a percentage of those folks who absolutely believe that and follow him blindly, but anybody with reasonable room temperature IQ, where he thought after getting beat, and he was beaten badly, that he was going to go to work for Trump. Trump's not going to take, first of all, now, clearly Trump's not going to take him now, not with all of this stuff hanging over his head. And at the same time, the idea of telling people to go burn the gay flag. Why would Trump want to take that on? Why would Trump want to take that on?
Steal and burn pride flags.
Yeah, come on.
Well, look, Peter, though, I have my own opinions about Trump, and I don't think he has a bottom that's very reachable either. He hasn't let morals get in the way of making,
But it's also why buy trouble?
True. Why put a lightning rod on?
Yeah, why buy trouble?
Why do it?
And right now, this guy he's gonna. There's somebody. Well, it ended up being me, and I think Mandy Connell took a run at it. I'm not sure, and just a couple other people. But people are afraid of these people, and there's no reason to be.
I know. Aren't they kind of the mysterious group behind the Rhino Watch stuff? Who are those brave people who don't out themselves for who they are? They just like slapping people up.
No, I know who they are, and they're friends, but I look at something like this. This crosses the line when this report dropped, and it shows what these people were doing, and that's way beyond putting out a website with somebody's picture on it. That's way past that.
I get it.
Way past that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
All right, man.
Yeah, what a weird deal.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Later, Pete.
Thank you, brother. All right, we got 3 minutes till the next pause. We start with Jim in Denver. Jim, we got 3 minutes. If we don't end it, I'll put you on hold and bring you back. Go ahead.
Hey guys, I just like pointing out the hypocrisy that always makes me chuckle. So it's no wonder our young people are confused if all our so-called leaders, are taking these anti-gay donations, and then they are effectively just writing each other paychecks, jerking one another off, confusing the young people even further. When is this political party going to actually do something that is beneficial to our nation and our young people?
As I'm watching Dave Williams go down, he bites the new chairman on the leg, and that'll be something that Steve Reams will talk about, because Reams had that interaction. I didn't have it. Dave Williams doesn't talk to me, but there are people that I spent last night with this report, and I spent this morning with this report, and when you get to it, look at disbursements. If you go to the website 710knus.com, the report is all up there, and go to disbursements, showing you where the money is being sent and who it's being sent to. And there's a law firm, Hampton and Pigott, and they gave them $35,000. There's a Republican National Committee transfer of $57,000, meaning these people sent $57,000 to Donald Trump. And I think Trump initially sent that to them. It almost seems to me there might be a wash job here. I'm not sure. But,
maybe one of these days, these geniuses that talk hot air for a living, maybe they'll just have to go get a real damn job and stop lying to people and being hypocrites and confusing our young people.
Well, what we know is that a lot of people didn't want to know this. A lot of people did not want to know this report. I appreciate your call as always. Thank you. You have a nice day. We have a line open now. Coming up, this book is. I didn't put it down. Didn't put it down. I finished it. Charlie Hustle, The Rise and Fall of Pete Rose and the Last Glory Days of Baseball, and then we'll start with Dick, and then we'll go to the sheriff. This report is there. 710knus.com. Peter Boyles. Take a look at it. Johnny Paycheck. See? Ha! Coors beer. Yeah. Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, there you go. We emceed him, Bob Lee and I, and he had changed his name from Johnny Paycheck. He had become John Austin Paycheck for a cup of coffee, and I got a great Johnny Paycheck story, but we had us a time at the Four Seasons with Johnny Paycheck. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station, sunny, warmer, 77, 78 on Sunday, and on Monday, 60 degrees. Back to the phones we go. We go to Stephen. Hey, Steve, you're on the radio show. Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning, Peter.
Morning, sir.
I don't know anything about Dave Williams or Randy Corcoran. However, when an employee working for any organization owns the employer duty of loyalty. The other point is when you have these legal corporations.
What does that? Tell me what that means.
Well, you have to act in the best interest of your employer. You can't be, for example, you can't be taking trade secrets or customer lists, giving them to competitors. You can't be acting like in this case for your own, personal gain at the expense of the corporation. And when you have these legal entities, various officers have fiduciary duties and those type of things. So aside from criminal liability, there could always be civil liability. You can't, there's impropriety, and then there's the appearance of impropriety, and there's, it's not insider trading, but it's a misappropriation of funds unless they're used properly. So aside from any criminal problems.
By the way, I love what you're doing. Stay there for a second. I don't know that anybody did anything wrong.
I understand, and I don't either.
And I try to make that clear. I'll make it clear again. It just appears, especially when we now have the paperwork of the consulting firm that Dave Williams is the consulting firm, and as if I assume this, that they're cutting checks to that firm, and Dave is the only agent of that firm, and he's consulting himself with the contributions of the Republican donators. How's that?
That's exactly right, and at least it warrants an inquiry. What happened? Who authorized it? What was the money used for? What services were provided?
Yeah. And I don't know that Randy did anything wrong, except it's just odd, given the role that he's played throughout all of this. And now he's here. There's two. It's the third one down, third largest disbursement. Says Colorado Republican Committee, Randy Corcoran, PC, Colorado Legal Services. That's a big umbrella. On 1/3/25 for $22,000. Then Colorado Republican Randy Corcoran, CEO, Legal Services, 3/29/25. This is pretty recent. $17,493.56. It doesn't say why, and I'm sure I hope there's some sort of a legitimate answer, but it's a big, so add them up, that's $39,500, give or take. That's a lot of money.
Well, if you looked at it from, sky high,
yeah,
no reasonable person would think something good's going to come out of this.
I don't know.
I don't know anything about them or anything. I'm just saying, from what you described, I have to believe the new folks would want to conduct some sort of inquiry and figure out,
let's see,
some sort of audit to see what went on.
Let's see what the Republican Party does, because when you listen to the sheriff at 11, I hope you're here to have him tell you what Dave Williams told him as a parting shot, and it would the sheriff is hosting Dan Caplis's show, and the way I take that retort, the way that it was spelled out to me this morning, you're now I mean, that was way out of line for Dave to say those things that he said to the sheriff. So, again, I think these are people that are, it's almost Nixonian in the end when they're all heading for the hills or whatever they're all doing, but there better be a lot of CYA right now.
Well, I'm a Democrat, and the Democrats are weak all over the country, weak in Colorado. Now would be a time for the Republicans to get their house in order and make reasonable common sense arguments on how to govern.
You'd want to believe that, but
yeah.
it's these guys have never. Well, the fact that Dave Williams pushed that the election was stolen. Any reasonable person, and I realize that there are people out there that want to believe that, and I'm sick and tired of it, and they should be as well, but Dave pushed that all the way. Well, reasonable people don't want anything to do with that. They don't want anything to do with the kind of hoodwinking that they were pushing. The stolen election was principal, primary, and people went.
Well, you know this, and I'm preaching to the choir, but there are lawsuits in Colorado. There are lawsuits all over the country, and there have been lawsuits all over the country on this issue.
Never.
And the deniers have not fared well in any of them.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter to the true believer, to the Mike Lindells, but the lawsuits are here now. They're in Colorado. The damage was done, and believe me, it's nothing that anybody's going to walk away from. So it's still a way off, and then you also have the chance now that Donald Trump could intervene, and with the Justice Department, and Trump will some of this stuff down, but maybe not. Maybe the courts could be stronger. We'll see what happens. But I'll
let you go. But on that Charlie Hustle, take a look at Marge's shots.
Oh, absolutely. She plays out in it. Her and the dogs. Hi, man.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too. Is there a name on that one? What? No, that's not a call. Okay. All right. So here's the setup. We're coming up close to time. It is 9:52, 8 before the hour. 710 KNUS, Peter Boyles, I Am the Man. Good morning. Sunny, warmer, and 77. Tomorrow, Sunday, it's going to be 78 degrees. On the other side, and I was in a bookstore, and I saw this book, and for some reason, I said, well, and I got it. One of the best books of the year. It says The Wall Street Journal. Remember, they always put out stuff like this. But it's the book is entitled Charlie Hustle, The Rise and Fall of Pete Rose in the Last Glory Days of Baseball. And it really isn't a balls and strikes book. It's more about these personalities and their inabilities and abilities to do what they did. And the fact that Pete Rose is a degenerate gambler and dies in his sleep at 84 years of age. And he's living in Vegas. And he's a river kid. I can relate to some of that, coming off the Ohio River. His dad's Big Pete. He's Pete, and his son they call Petey. And what he did and what he was capable of doing. They play out in cocaine. They play out in gambling. He would go to the track. And then, in fact, he bet on baseball. And he's sitting in the commissioner's office. And the commissioner, finally, they've gotten him down. Everybody's in the office with him. And they say, did you bet on baseball? All Pete Rose would have had to have done was say yes. And he did not. He lied. And that set the investigation off. And, of course, they come up with all the rest of it, his connections into organized criminals, bookies, gamblers, coke dealers, everything and anything. And I really liked him. I was a big Pete Rose fan. I had no idea this stuff was going on, obviously, but I loved how hard-nosed he was, and he was tough. And it's really but the part of it that's, I think, most important in the book is the last glory days of baseball. We'll ask Keith O'Brien, and then Dick Wadhams is coming on, the sheriff's coming on, and we'll rock and roll. It's Saturday. I'm Peter Boyles, Radio Free Denver, good old 710 KNUS. Morning, everybody. It's a Saturday, May the 3rd, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS. The weather's beauty. 77 the high today and 78 on Sunday. It drops down on Monday, 60 degrees. I think this is a home run. Please say good morning. The book is Charlie Hustle, and I'm a reader, but don't always read sports books. And I've always been enamored by Pete Rose, so I walking through the bookstore, and I see Charlie Hustle, The Rise and Fall of Pete Rose and the Last Glory Days of Baseball. Please say good morning. Welcome to the radio show. Keith O'Brien is with us. He's a Cincinnati guy, so being a Pittsburgh kid growing up, you guys were enemies. I'm just a lot older. And the Reds were the Klazuski Reds, and I was with the Clemente Pirates. And when the Reds came to town, man, or the Pirates went to play the Reds, this was way before Pete Rose. Then I saw Pete Rose in that All-Star game, and I was hooked. Thanks for doing the book. Thanks for doing the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, you grew up on Pete Rose.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Cincinnati. Too young to remember the Big Red Machine years. I'm alive, but I'm just too young to remember them. But I'm, in the wheelhouse of my love for baseball in the 1980s when Pete Rose is traded back to Cincinnati in 1984. Like many people, I remember exactly where I was on that warm September night in 1985 when he set the all-time hit record. And listen, I remember everything that happened after that. His fall in 1989 and all the conflicting feelings that created, not just for Cincinnatians, but I think for baseball fans across America.
I think you're right. I mean, why do I have to agree with you? But I do. I think you're absolutely right. He was something else. When in sports and in politics or maybe in entertainment, we see people fall, but it's to see Pete Rose fall, and like most of America, I guess I watched it happen. It was very sad, wasn't it?
I think it is. Listen, the reason why I wrote this book, Charlie Hustle, is because I feel like we forgot why we ever cared about Pete Rose in the first place.
Yeah.
I think in the last 36 years, since his banishment from baseball in 1989, as Pete made mistake after mistake off the field, often making things more difficult for himself, I think we forgot why we ever cared in the first place. And so what I wanted to do with this book is go all the way back and tell this story, the story of this rise and this fall. And because it's only when we realize, why we cared about him in the first place, we come to understand why we cared about that fall. And one thing I learned, going back and telling this story, is that you simply cannot write the story of baseball in the latter half of the 20th century without Pete Rose. He is square in the middle of some of the biggest moments in baseball history on and off the field. Long before his problems, long before his scandal. Yeah. And, when you see the Pete Rose story that way, I think it's much more than just a baseball story. That's certainly how I tried to write it anyway. I think this is, frankly, a Greek tragedy that just happened to play out in and around an American baseball field.
When I was billboarding your appearance, it's exactly what I said. This is not a sports book, but it's about sports, or words to that effect. And Pete Rose, I remember when Pete Rose in that All-Star game, when he came head first into home and bowled that guy over, I went, wow, he's somebody else. He's something really, really special. And after that, I mean, was he dubbed Charlie Hustle after that? I think he was.
Well, no, actually, so the collision you're talking about was with Ray Fosse in July 1970.
Yes.
That to me is the moment when Pete Rose becomes Pete Rose. Okay. He becomes Charlie Hustle. That moment that you referenced was witnessed by 50 million viewers on NBC. That's how many people tuned in to watch the All-Star Game in July 1970. 50 million. So it is really a moment that cements his place, in the cultural mindset. But the nickname itself, Charlie Hustle, actually was given to him in March 1963. Spring training, 1963. Pete Rose, still trying to make his first big league roster, will come out that day on a Sunday in March and be the starting second baseman down in spring training in a Reds game versus the New York Yankees. And this was, the preeminent Yankees of the day. It's Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra, Roger Maris. And it's that day that Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford give him this name, Charlie Hustle, and they don't intend it to be a compliment. Yeah. Frankly, they were laughing at Pete because they thought he was playing too hard in a spring training game.
I love those guys too. That they were my time frame, the Yankees, and growing up in Pittsburgh in '60 when the Pirates beat them. That was like big time for me. That was a highlight. And it's hard, again, I think you capture it so well. I can't root very much for professional sports these days, but boy, when I was a young kid playing ball and you just fell in love with these guys, you idolized them. And when I first saw Pete Rose getting attention, he was really something, wasn't he? Really something.
I mean, we didn't know what to do with him back then. At a time when no player had a multi-year contract. Nobody. Everybody was playing for next year's contract. Everybody was playing for next year's salary. Everybody knew that if they didn't perform, they could actually take a pay cut in the 1960s and 70s. At this time, when everyone's playing hard for that next year's contract, they didn't even know what to do with Pete Rose then, with his head first sliding and his sprinting down to first base on a walk and the general fury with which he played on the field. So he was an anomaly then in the 60s and 70s. We certainly wouldn't know what to do with him now at a time when, if you even look crossways, at somebody on a baseball field, you can be warned or tossed from the game. This was the guy who willingly slid hard into second base, breaking up double plays, a guy who would instigate fights just to spark his team, and a guy who, as you noted, would bowl over Ray Fosse, the young catcher for the Cleveland Indians, at home plate to win what was essentially a meaningless mid-season exhibition game in 1970. He really is a one of one in the American sports history.
When he plows into the umpire, the book is Charlie Hustle. Our guest is Keith O'Brien. Book's wonderful. When he plows drives his shoulder into the umpire, did he do that?
The catcher. The
catcher. I'm sorry. Does he? No, but he comes after an umpire later too, doesn't he? He comes out of the dugout after an umpire when he's managing, and he drops his shoulder into the umpire. And I actually know that guy. I met him. And does he do that kind of stuff on purpose to fire the team up, or is that really him?
Well, at times he did instigate fights to fire the team up. At times he did it because it was really him. Yeah. What's interesting about Pete Rose is that he is also rife with complexities and contradictory elements. This man who would willingly instigate fights on the field actually didn't like confrontation off the field. He would not get in arguments with his fellow teammates. He would not get in arguments with his wives. He would not argue with the media. He really did want to be liked. It is an interesting complexity about Pete Rose, I think.
What I always related to him was he was a river kid, and I grew up on the Allegheny, and he grew up on the Ohio, and his dad they called him Big Pete. Talk about his dad, and do you think his dad's influence on Pete Rose?
If Pete was still alive, he would say that his father, Big Pete, was the most important person in his life. Yeah. He worshipped his father. Big Pete was the original athlete in the Rose family in the 1930s, 40s, and even into the 1950s after Pete Rose is born. His father is a prominent semi-pro football player on the west side of Cincinnati at a time when there was no professional football in Cincinnati. The Bengals didn't exist yet. This was as far as his father could go. And from the moment that his first son, little Pete, is born in 1941, the father really is fixated on the son's future success as an athlete. He's demanding of it. He wants it for him. And it's his father, in fact, who is telling young Pete from an early age that in order to succeed, he's going to have to work harder than other players. He's going to have to hustle. And, we've seen this go sideways many times, with fathers overbearing on their sons, demanding of them athletic greatness. We've seen it happen to famous sons. We've seen it happen probably on our own youth baseball and soccer.
Yes.
But Pete, absolutely wants to please his father. He wants to be the person that his father wants him to be, and he really internalize his father's messages, and use that, to make something of himself in those early years at a time when nobody was scouting Pete Rose. No. He was not, this hot athlete, hot baseball player that Major League scouts were looking to sign. In fact, I would argue that it's frankly a miracle that we ever come to know Pete Rose's name at all.
But he personifies baseball. There is that time period beginning in the 70s where I'm a fan. We don't talk about it on the radio show because I don't have the equipment to do so, but I watch the games and I watch the ball players. Pete Rose, you'd find a game that Pete Rose was in, this is early on with Dish Television, just to watch Pete Rose. We wanted to watch what he did. And it's like waiting to see Mickey Mantle bat. Pete Rose was going to do something. And they had Johnny Bench. Look at the guys they had. They really had a team. And then they had Marge Schott. What do we do with her?
Right. Well, Marge Schott comes later, but you're right. In the 70s, that is one of the greatest teams ever assembled. With several future Hall of Famers. Yeah. And Pete Rose, at times, maybe never was the best player on his own team, which is the sort of shocking thing to think about there in the 1970s. He's playing on teams with Johnny Bench, with Joe Morgan, with Mike Schmidt later. Yes. He is, arguably not the best player on his own team at any time in the 1970s or early 1980s. And yet, to your point, when the 70s are over and sports writers are voting who is the athlete of the decade,
Pete Rose.
Pete Rose is the one who is named and given that title, which I think says a lot about what he meant to people. Like I said at the outset here, in the last 35 years of his life, as Pete made mistake after mistake, I think we forgot why we cared. And the reason why we cared is because he not only personified baseball, I think he personified something about the American dream. If you think about the story we tell our children, if you work hard, if you try hard, if you hustle, you can do anything. That's the American story.
I always thought of him as us, off the river, uneducated, not sophisticated, but was absolutely driven when he's on the ball field. Let me ask you, because we got limited time, the $64,000 question about being in the Hall of Fame. Big deal. I believe that he belongs in the Hall of Fame. You make the case when he's in the office of the commissioner, all he would have had to have done is say, I bet on baseball, and he couldn't do it. Take time with that, please.
Well, right. In my book, Charlie Hustle, I don't take sides. I wasn't here to make a case for him. I'm not here to make a case against him. I wanted to tell this story with unprecedented reporting, tell that story, and let people come to their own conclusions. But, my conclusion is that if Pete had told the truth in 1989, this would not still be looming over baseball today. That is not my opinion. That is rooted in the facts that I dug up in my reporting. And as it relates to his candidacy or lack of candidacy today, I just frankly feel that we have lost perspective about the Hall of Fame, all Halls of Fame. I think we like to put athletes on pedestals. I think we like to ascribe moral values to them. And the fact is, we don't know what we don't know about them. And we frankly don't know them very well at all.
True.
And so for all those reasons, I think the players should be voted in or not based on what they did on the field. It's the only thing we know for sure. And if what they did off the field is so wrong, I think we should put it on the plaque at Cooperstown. Put their mistakes right there in bronze next to their accomplishments for perpetuity.
You had a sidebar into Tris Speaker. What did Tris Speaker do? I know the name and I know the legends, but why did you mention Tris Speaker as a guy in the Hall of Fame that maybe shouldn't be? Equating with Pete Rose.
Many people think that the rule 21D, which ensures the banishment of players who bet on their own games, begins after the 1919 World Series, the Black Sox series. But that's not when it happened. That rule was put in place in the 1920s, several years after the 1919 series, when a scandal erupts involving alleged fixing of games between players near the end of a season. And one of those players allegedly involved is future Hall of Famer Tris Speaker.
Wow.
That is when the rule is put into place. And whether it's Tris Speaker or anyone else, there are lots of people in our halls of fame who are not great people.
Ty Cobb.
Who have made incredible mistakes.
Yeah.
Or were incredibly flawed.
Because we're going to run out of time, and I don't want to, but does he belong? I believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame. Your thoughts?
I don't have a vote, but
okay.
I believe that he should be, if based on what he did on the field.
Thank you. That's how I feel. Asterisks perhaps, but nevertheless, he's the man. And I love the book. It's became my gym book, so I took it to the gym every day. So thank you. Just thanks for doing the show. I know anytime you get some extra time, make a call. I'd love to put you on and talk about baseball. It'd be great. The book is Charlie Hustle.
Thanks so much for having me.
Vintages, I'll just show it to everybody. Vintage, let me get it on the camera here someplace. There, how's that? There it is. Get the book. Thank you, sir. Be safe. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much. Our guest, Keith O'Brien.
Thank you so much.
We're coming back, and we're going to pick it up on where we were before with the Colorado Republican Committee report. Morning, everybody. It's a Saturday morning, May 3rd, 2025, 710 KNUS, 77, sunny and warmer. Gusty winds tomorrow and 78, 60 on Monday. Coming up, we're going to jump ahead and bring Dick Wadhams up next. But first, tell you about Danny Kaplis and his law firm and the good friend that he is. And Danny suggests, and I go along with what the man says, choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says so much more about you to everybody involved in the case. We've talked about how Danny grew up and got a golf scholarship. He's really just a decent, good man. And Dan's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Danny's believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan's believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Kaplis Law, the official firm now of the Nuggets and the Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Danny accepts righteous injury cases on percentage fee basis. So he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard and the ability to pay. He is my friend. If you need Dan's help, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or on the internet, hit caplislaw.com. It's CAPLIS law.com, 303-770-5551. Please say good morning and welcome back to the radio show. Dick Wadhams is with us. We led the hour, in the first hour, about this commission report. Dick, thanks for doing the show. Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning, Peter.
When I look at this, and I don't have the ability to really to deep dive with the eye of an accountant, but boy, I can find some holes in this thing you can drive a truck through. First of all, if you would, it's a federal commission report. Explain to the audience, by the way, on our website, 710 KNUS on Peter Boyles, there it is, the report's there. Explain to the audience just exactly what this report is.
Well, Peter, federal campaigns, meaning campaigns for Congress and the U.S. Senate, along with state political parties, are required to file reports with the Federal Election Commission on a regular basis, and those reports have to reflect every dime that is spent and raised by that campaign or that political party. It is just a fact of life. Campaigns spend a lot of money trying to do it right because federal election law can be changed, is constantly changing, but it's a very important part of any political campaign for parties and candidates and campaigns.
So this one comes down in the middle of last week. I'll keep a lot of things to myself, but I immediately got a phone call and got this sent to me and had to sit at the computer and learn to take it apart and what to look for. And this comes in, it's in segments, is it not?
Yeah, and it's important to also note, Pete, that Federal Election Commission reports filed by candidates and political parties are totally available to the public. You can get on the Federal Election Commission website and punch in Colorado Republican Committee, and you can see every report they filed going back decades, yes. Frankly. And so this is all transparent information.
And what jumped off the pages to you, and then I'll ask my follow-up. So what did it show you, or what did it say to you?
Well, I really don't know. I don't really didn't see anything new in the report, but it did seem to verify and confirm just how badly focused the Colorado Republican Party has been over the last 2 years under Dave Williams. The spending money to support his favorite Republican candidates in primary elections, attacking Republican candidates in primary elections, not doing anything to give money directly to candidates in the 2024 election. And there was nothing done in terms of trying to to build a what is called the Victory Operation, which has historically been a big strength of the Colorado Republican Party, and that is the get out the vote operation, get every Republican out to vote. There was nothing like that. Candidates were totally on their own in 2024. And so it just confirmed for the mismanagement of the party and the lack of focus on what it should have been focused on for the last 2 years.
I now have paperwork for an organization or a group called Fox Group Ltd. Limited. Have you seen this paperwork?
Well, I know that was Dave Williams' consulting firm that he paid out of the state party coffers. First of all, Peter, I had no problem with Dave Williams or any state chairman getting paid. I was a full-time state chairman when I served in 2007 to 2011. But I don't understand why he didn't just pay himself directly, why he paid this firm that he set up. It was kind of a clumsy way to somehow, I don't know, to obfuscate what he was being paid, but it was kind of easy to see through it. But I have no trouble with Dave getting paid. Now, I don't know that it was worth that money.
I'm under the impression that he used to claim that he wasn't taking any money.
Well, initially he claimed that when he first got elected, and then at some point he did start getting paid. And I don't know what the dynamics were behind that, because I certainly wasn't an insider in the party the last several years. But on the other hand, like I say, I don't know why he paid that firm which belonged to him rather than just paying himself directly and having on the report that he paid himself. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing unethical, nothing illegal about paying him.
But Dave is the registered agent for the Fox Group Ltd. Limited.
Yeah.
So he's paying himself for consulting himself.
It's kind of an awkward, like I say, it's an awkward and clumsy situation he created, and I have no idea why he did it that way.
And I have this paperwork that showing him as the registered agent of the consulting firm that he was paying. And he's basically paying himself for consulting himself.
I know. It's like I say, it's. I don't understand why he did it that way. It would have been far better for him just to pay himself and listing himself as the payee on the FEC report. I don't know.
And you can see here, and I'll come back and ask about Randy as well. But says Fox Group Ltd. Chairman Consulting, $8,000, a round number check. And then the next one, same thing, round number, $8,000. The next one is the same thing, $8,000. And then he pays himself $6,000. And that's on the 16025. And here's one, deferred payment, $325,025 for $10,000. Not once does it say how, why, where, or when, but just a lump sum of money. Is it just...
I have no idea what that is.
I don't know.
Almost either that he made some deal with the party that he wouldn't take payment at some point in the past, and he would take it down the road. And I don't know. I have no idea what that's about.
So now we have the third person on the list is Randy Corcoran. And he gets this is interesting because it's a round number, $22,000. And then he gets paid again on 3/29/25, and this is an interesting number, $17,493.56. What's your best guess on that?
Well, I don't know. The FEC report says it's for legal services or whatever it is, but a very general comment on that on the report. I have to think that all or most of that was paid in terms of him representing the Colorado Republican Party in this lawsuit they filed in federal court to repeal Proposition 108, which was the proposition passed in 2016 that gives unaffiliated voters the ability to vote in one of the two-party primaries.
So
I think,
is that the one they lost, and then they sued?
Yeah, they filed for a preliminary decision and a federal judge rejected them a year ago,
That's right.
and now they're back asking. I think it's a stupid lawsuit, Peter. It's not illegal, it's not unethical, but it's really politically stupid. There are Peter, just this month, there are now over 2 million unaffiliated voters in Colorado. For the first time, it's over 2 million. And yet the state Republican Party is going to court to tell 2 million unaffiliated voters that we want to take away your right to vote in taxpayer-paid for primary.
I know.
And so that's the thing. I don't know what Randy was saying. I assume it was that, but it's a stupid lawsuit.
The way I saw it was they were going to try and corral or control who could vote for them. And if they had their own people giving them the green light, then they could get the people that they wanted. And
yeah, they're afraid of the unaffiliated voters voting in the primary. They don't like that.
Nobody wants them. And they proved that in the general election. They proved that. How many of Dave Weems's candidates actually won?
Well, that's another issue. During this last election, 2024, Dave Williams and the state party endorsed 18 candidates in primaries, contested primaries. Totally unprecedented. Hadn't happened in more than 100 years of state party history, Pete. 14 of his 18 candidates lost, which says something right there, including himself, by the way.
Yeah.
He endorsed himself in the 5th Congressional District when he ran against Jeff Crank, who went on to win the primary and the general, and who is now a member of Congress from Colorado Springs. But that's kind of backfired. They endorsed 18 and lost 14 of those elections.
Did he pay for mailers for himself?
Yes.
So people.
The state party did that. Yeah.
So and I'm an elderly person. So some elderly woman in, I don't know, Heather Gardens gives the party $100. Is she okaying Dave to make a mailer for himself out of that?
I'm not sure she probably knew how the money would be spent, but that was one of the expenditures the party made with party donations, which is to endorse him, and they endorsed Ron Hanks in the 3rd District, who lost Jeff Hurd, and they endorsed another candidate over Gabe Evans in the 8th Congressional District, and of course Hanks and the 8th District candidate and Williams all lost those primaries, even though they were supported and financially assisted by the state party.
What seems interesting to me, and our guest is Dick Wadhams, the Federal Elections Commission report on the Republican Party. Almost 100%, if you wanted to get the blessings of Dave Williams, you had to proclaim the election stolen. Anytime that came up, I think reasonable human beings ran as fast as they could in the other direction. Did it seem to you that had to be part and parcel of this?
No doubt, Peter. I think that was a litmus test. Unless you subscribe to the theory that the 2020 presidential election was stolen from Donald Trump, then you were not a true Republican. You were a rhino. You were a Republican in name only.
Yeah.
And therefore you should be opposed in primaries.
Yeah, I mean, these were people giving medical advice, and these were people giving financial advice, and all they did was damage. That's all they did, and damaged the party, what's left of the party. And I wonder, because we have a pause coming up, Adam, I wonder if we could ask the sheriff to jump in here and talk about what Dave said to him on the way out the door. You want to do that? Can we pause here? Can we maybe?
No, I got 2 minutes.
Go. Well, we got 2 minutes to the break. You know what? I'll sell something. I'll put, if you would, please put Dick on hold and call the sheriff, and I'll tell folks about David Ellis in Cherry Creek. You've heard me talk to you for so long about taking your valuables to David Ellis in Cherry Creek, getting a fortune in cash, securing an appraisal from David for all the valuables that you have tucked away in your home. Now, weddings are coming, graduations are coming. It is a great time to walk in and see Dave. See David Ellis just in case you don't have a Rolex watch, rare coins, a silver tea set. Go see David Ellis for all of your most meaningful gift-giving occasions. David Ellis Jewelers, just the right items for just the right price. Special people that mean so much to you. An antique watch, an emerald pendant, a gold necklace, a diamond ring. This trusted jeweler has been buying precious metals and antiques in Colorado for decades. Dazzling cases filled with hundreds of new and used pieces for your loved ones, and your loved ones will treasure. Be the person, be the man, be the woman. Visit David Ellis Jewelers and see for yourself. Look for the black awning on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. Explore David Ellis Jewelers. He's there right now. He's there 6 days a week. Explore davidellisjewelry.com. You can call David, 303-322-8779, 303-322-8779. He's on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. He's got a black awning on the place. He is my friend. He's the man that prices are right. 303-322-8779, and tell David Peter Boyle sent you. All right, let's do the turn and come back. 710 KNUS. Saturday morning, everyone, May the 3rd, 2025. I'm Peter Boyle, 710 KNUS. 77, sunny and warmer. Motorcycles outside, 78 on Sunday. Monday, it is 60 degrees. Dave Williams, the former Colorado GOP chairman, has been facing scrutiny for the longest time over allegations of improperly using state party resources and funds for personal gain, particularly in relationship to his campaign. And now this report has dropped. The Colorado Republican, it is from the feds, it is from the man, and we have it up on our website, 710 KNUS Peter Boyles. It is there. In the meantime, joining us, and he is a great friend, and he's a very stalwart guy. Please say good morning, along with Dick Wadhams. The sheriff of Weld County is with us, Steve Reams. Sheriff, good morning and thank you. And Dick's still with us. And Dick, thank you for staying.
You bet.
Good morning, Steve. Thanks. Hey, Dick, how you doing?
Good.
This is a really interesting morning because both of you guys have been targets of this part of the Republican Party, targets again and again and again. And you have all said again and again and again, the truth is, and someday it will be known, and now apparently it looks like it is. Now, Sheriff, I know that you're going to be hosting the Capitalist show on Monday. Danny's off. I think we got Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Nah, just Monday this week. He's going to have a couple others filling in for Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay. Having said that, I gave up on contacting Dave Williams. It's just useless for me. However, now, did you have a text conversation or a vocal conversation?
It was a text conversation, and when I realized I was going to be hosting for Dan on Monday, I thought, well, there's this email battle that's been happening for a couple of years now between when Dave Williams was running the party, things that were going out about various folks, and then the Rhino Watch thing started. And now since Brita Horn has taken over the Republican Party, there's been some emails that have come out from her group that, kind of lobbed some shots back at the prior administration. So I thought, well, I had Brita Horn on Capitalist's show, I guess a week or so ago. And I thought, well, I'll give Dave a chance to come on and tell his side of the story. So I texted him and just asked him if he'd like to come on and, have a response to some of the emails that are coming up.
Sure. Was this before or after the report dropped?
This was after. It was just yesterday. I texted him and asked him if he would like to come on and be on the show on Monday. And he replied and politely declined and gave me a quote that I could use for the show. And so I can read that if you'd like.
If you would.
Yeah. So he says he's currently unavailable because he's traveling. But he says you can use this quote. And here it is. Sooner or later, Brita Horn is going to have to take responsibility for her own failed leadership instead of spreading fake news about the prior party administration just so she can distract from her disastrous first month as the new chairwoman.
Wow.
End of quote. So I take that to mean that he doesn't really want to discuss anything that's in the FEC report, which, that's his right to do. And he's just saying, this new leadership is on a path to failure, and he's walking away. That's my interpretation.
Dick, what do you think of that quote?
Well, I think it's a little early to declare Brita a failure or however he said it. I think Brita deserves the opportunity to lead the party and see where it goes. And I'm sure it rankles Williams because her victory was seen as a repudiation of his 2 years. But, it's pretty clear what the legacy of Dave Williams is, Peter. I mean, I honestly do not see any illegality in this report or frankly, what he did as chairman. But his judgment was horrible. His leadership was defined by exclusion, by attacks on other Republicans, not helping Republicans in the general election. What he did in terms of the character assassination of his predecessor, Christy Burton Brown, for 2 years, Williams and Randy Corcoran and others in the party said that she had financially mismanaged the party and suggested there had been illegal activity. They said that for 2 years, and to this day, they still have not given any details about those allegations. It was nothing but a character assassination of Christy Burton Brown. So his behavior is deplorable in many ways. I don't see anything illegal, but certainly deplorable.
Sheriff, illegal is an interesting term. Maybe because I was, even last night after you and I talked, and I talked to Dick, I was trying to look for a word to describe this. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they did anything wrong at all. I don't have that. I don't have that ability.
Yeah, well, I don't investigate federal law, and this is definitely outside of my realm of law enforcement experience. But I agree with Dick. I don't think that there's necessarily violations of the law, but it sure is puzzling. I mean, as Dick pointed out earlier, a chairman is more than welcome to pay himself for the work that's being done in that role as chairman. So to see that those payments were made to Fox Group, and then, it's obvious that Dave is the registered agent of Fox Group, I don't understand why you would do that. It's puzzling, and that, of course, when you do something that doesn't appear normal, that obviously draws questions. The only thing I can think of in those matters is that there might be a tax advantage to taking the money as a consultant versus taking the money as a paid employee. I don't think there's any legal ramifications of that, but it's very curious. I know that there were times early on in Dave's tenure as the GOP chairman that he had talked about not taking a salary, and so maybe that was some of the motivation. But it definitely makes you scratch your head, and quite honestly, a lot of these payments make you kind of scratch your head because there's not a lot of detail as to what they were for.
Detail. There's no detail. There's none. There's
yeah. I mean, paying a consultant to consult himself it just seems so weird, but it is what it is.
No, I thought that as well. If he's, stand in the light, I guess, is, you're paying yourself, and it's always weird. It's always in a round number, and I can't do math and I can't do marriage, but every one of these contributions or disbursements is $8,000, $8,000, $8,000, $6,000, $10,000. There isn't and the one bill that they pay Randy is $17,493.56, but the one they pay before that is $22,000 even. Now, I don't know if that means anything but it just is. It's kind of nonsensical to me, but it's also he consults himself. I'd like to do that. I personally have not done a very good job at it, but if somebody might pay me, $10,000 to consult myself, I'm up for it.
It's definitely a weird arrangement, and I think, at the end of all this, just when you see how much is spent towards legal fees or attorney fees from the Republican Party, that's difficult. I mean, that shows there was a lot of stuff going on back and forth in court processes, and I just don't know if that's normal. It doesn't appear to me. Dick could probably respond to that better than anybody, but having that many attorneys involved in legal filings or court proceedings, whatever it may have been, just seems abnormal for a GOP for a party to have to do at a state level. It's odd.
Dick?
Yeah, I was chairman for 4 years, and we certainly had a relationship with a campaign finance law firm that we paid a monthly retainer to. What I said earlier, Pete, is we wanted to make sure we were filing these FEC reports and also reports with the Colorado Secretary of State correctly. And so you do use legal counsel to make sure you're not violating the law or even coming close to it. But that was a monthly retainer fee. It was it wasn't an overwhelming amount of money. And we never had anything like these expenditures. And I don't know what these expenditures are for.
No, I don't either. It doesn't say. $22,000 and $17,000, and they're almost back to back. One is $113.25. The next one is $329.25, and that's almost $39,500. Let me ask you guys to come through the break with me. Come back on the other side, and let's try and put this together before open lines. Our guests are now on hold. Dick Wadhams is on hold, and the sheriff is on hold as well, Steve Reams. This report is there. You can see it, 710 KNUS. Peter Boyles, it'll click. Mark Crowley did the work. Click on it. It starts to come apart. 710 KNUS. Hang on. Morning again, everyone. It is a Saturday morning, May the 3rd, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS, the voice of the people. Our weather, sunny and warmer and 77 the high. Tomorrow, Sunday, 78 degrees. And on Monday, got some rain coming back in. I'm Peter Boyles. Lines are going to be open here in just a little bit. In the meantime, two very special guests. And in the middle of the week, this report came, and it is from the Federal Election Commission, United States of America, and it is the Colorado Republican Committee report, financial summary. And on the line with us, they're both good friends. Dick Wadhams is with us, of course, and the Sheriff of Weld County, Steve Reams, is with us. And both have been targets of all of the nonsense from inside the Colorado GOP. And Dave Williams, of course, faces scrutiny over allegations of improperly using state party resources and funds for all of his personal gains, and particularly in relationship to the campaign. He has said none of those things were true, and I don't know what this report says if it is not saying that stuff's true. All these concerns about his access to the state parties, emails, potential misuse of volunteer exemptions, campaign finances, campaign contributions, and the complaint now also about the Colorado GOP and so-called the establishment and the far right factions, maybe is a good way to say it, since Williams' election as chair. And both of these men have been targets of this, and now comes this report. And if you want to follow along at home, 710knus.com, Peter Boyles, Mark Crowley put it up there. You can click it, and you can look at disbursements, which is who is getting paid, and you can look at contributions and all the other stuff that goes with it. Because we're going to go into open lines and people want to talk about all of this, who's the law firm, anybody, Hampton, Hampton, and Pigott, LLP. Are you guys, either one of you, familiar with that law firm?
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not either.
They got $35,000. Says Colorado Lawyer Trust Account on 3/22. In other words, at coming to the end of their era, on the 22nd of March of this year, would it be the Williams outfit gave them 35 G's? What for?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, as I said before, Pete, I've never seen a time where the state party was spending that much money on legal fees, and who knows, maybe this is a very necessary expenditure, but there's a lot of different expenditures that are made to law firms throughout the FEC report. So they definitely had a lot of things going on in the legal arena. That's all I can surmise from the report at this point. But it'd be nice to get some clarity.
The next biggest contribution after the $35,000 is $22,000 even to Randy Corcoran, and that was January 13th, 25. The next one after that was to Randy Corcoran on March 29th, 25, for $17,493.56. That, at least so far, and this is just since the first of the year, Randy's gotten almost $39,500, $39,500. So you're paying the one firm $35,000. I'm stuck, and then it gets to the Fox Group, and what's important, and this is really good work. I'll start with you, Sheriff, if I can. Who is the Fox Group, LTD?
Well, a simple Google search of Fox Group LTD Colorado will take you to it takes you to Dave Williams, essentially. He looks like he's the registered agent of the Fox Group and the one and only agent of the Fox Group. So.
Dick, what does that say to you with all of these contributions of $9,000, $8,000, $10,000? What does it say?
Well, you mean to the Fox Group?
What does it say in general? Just what does it speak to?
Again, I think it's just kind of an awkward attempt to apparently to pay a consulting entity rather than just paying himself directly. Once again, I was a full-time paid chairman, so I have no problem with chairs being paid, but I was paid to me. I mean, the state party paid me to be the state chairman. I don't know why he paid a consulting firm that I think Steve might have mentioned the tax advantage to doing that. I don't know if that's true or not. I just never did that. But he, it was kind of awkward the way they did that. I don't understand why.
On March 25th of this year, and they have it down as a deferred payment of $10,000 to the Fox Group. Is by 3/25, is the game over for Dave Wadhams, or is he still in the saddle?
No, he's still there until March 29th, as I recall.
All right.
And the deferred payment suggests that he made an agreement with the party to defer payment of his salary or his whatever
consulting fee. Consulting fee.
Yeah. So I can only surmise that. Once again, probably not anything wrong with that, Pete. It's just But on the other hand, it just kind of lingers out there.
Then on the exact same day, 3/29/25, back to this law firm, Hampton, Hampton, and Pigott. They give them $9,500 on the same day. They defer Dave for $10,000. I mean,
no idea.
Boss, you got any ideas on this one, Sheriff?
Well, it just seems to me that there was some bills owed, and at the end of the line, they're paying out the most important things as Dave saw them. I don't know what these folks were doing for the state party. I mean, that's a question we may never get answered. Again, a quick Google search shows that they are a legitimate law firm.
Yeah.
I don't know what their specialty is or what they were doing for the party, but if you need their services, you're going to have to pay for their services, I'm sure. But man, that's a lot of money for legal expenses.
That's a kind of I mean, when I'm thinking about when they're getting small contributions from listeners to this radio station or people in Windsor Gardens or whatever, Heather Gardens, and they're going, okay, give me $50, $100, $75. Do they know that money's going to go to Randy or go to some other firm? Or, I wonder if people were aware of where the money was going to go. Or, no, I'm serious. I mean, that's a very serious question.
So Pete, I think for the listeners, you have a lot of listeners that are active in voting for the Republican Party, but they may not be active in attending, their local caucus or the state assembly. And a lot of this stuff, kind of goes unnoticed by the majority of voters because they're not that engaged in all this process. But for those of us that do engage in this process, either because we have to or because we find it interesting or whatever the reason, we were the ones that were getting a ton of emails. So this is really, it feels like inside track stuff. But for those of us that are engaged and heavily involved in Republican politics, this becomes a pretty strong narrative that, Dave he was persistently sending out emails about, what the party was doing, what the direction that he was pushing the party in. And then on top of that, the Rhino Watch group is using the same email addresses, and they're sending out stuff that is kind of targeting certain candidates. And so, all this stuff is churning for a couple of years. And then, at the end of it all, you see these FEC reports, and it does make you question, okay, everybody was donating to this cause, or Republicans were donating to this cause. What was the money getting used for? And when you see these giant attorney fees, I mean, to me, that's a lot of money. I'm a sheriff. I'm a sheriff. I make a decent living, but I don't make that kind of money to throw $50,000, $60,000 at a whack to different attorney firms. And I think most people that donate to the Republican Party are probably in the same, income bracket as what we're talking about. And so I think they're as shocked by those amounts too.
Isn't one of my close personal friends a recipient of some of this money through another firewall?
Are you talking about your close personal friend John Eastman?
Yes. Isn't Professor Eastman a recipient of some of this money? Are they using a way to get to Professor Eastman?
That I can't answer. I don't know if he's associated with any of these law firms. Not that I've seen, but there's always subcontracting that can be done and that kind of stuff. So, I guess you can make inferences, but that's all you'd be doing at this point, from what I could tell.
Have you, Dick? Have you seen anything that any money is being collected by or for my friend John Eastman?
Well, Eastman, in conjunction with Corcoran, have been the two lawyers representing the party in this federal lawsuit to overturn Proposition 108. And they did go into court about a year ago and in an attempt to get the court to rule in their favor, and the court rejected them. They're going back, allegedly are going to go back into court later in 2025. And I know that Eastman has been soliciting contributions from people in Colorado to him to help pay for his services to the party. But other than that, so he's clearly in the middle of all this. I just don't know in what way he's getting paid, or there's nothing on this report that shows that. But as far as I can tell, the party was pursuing this lawsuit. I don't know what they'll do now with Brita Horn. This is the state chair. I hope she reconsiders this lawsuit, because it's going to cost a bunch of money, and it's a stupid lawsuit politically. When you've got a state with 2 million unaffiliated voters that represent literally half of the electorate, and Republicans are at only 23% of the electorate, it kind of doesn't make much sense to go after unaffiliated voters and keep them from voting. It just kind of defies logic, in my opinion.
But unless you corral or control, and that way you can control the outcome.
The outcome of Republican nomination.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're right.
And you get somebody that locks steps with Dave. The election was stolen and everything that goes with that. No, it was you could see what they were doing. And regardless, it failed, but it doesn't matter. They're coming back at it again. But maybe now, after some of this gets out, we'll see if it gets out or where it gets out, and people respond to it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
If I could, when I had Brita on the radio with me, asking some questions about where the direction of the party's going, and obviously she's just taken over, so you give her a little bit of grace and trying to figure out, okay, what's your plan as the chairwoman? And the toughest question I had to ask her was, well, how much money do you have to work with?
Yeah.
And that was probably the hardest question for her to answer, because this FEC filing had not been finalized yet. So I don't think it was a super clean transition of, hey, here's how much money you have to work with. Mm-hmm. I think we know how much she has now. I believe it's around the $28,000 range that was left. But obviously there was monies being spent there at the end that I'm sure Brita would have rather had, as seed money to start with. But regardless, that process didn't happen on the day of the election. It took quite a bit of time until, I guess just last week when this filing was done. So it's definitely put her in what I would think is somewhat of an unfair situation to start with. But maybe that's natural. That's the natural progression from one chairperson to the next. But
if you look at one of the things I looked at was disbursement dates, where all the big money went. 305.25, 322.25, 113.25, 329.25, 325.25, 314.25, 26.25, 116.25, 328.25. They're all happening after Donald Trump has won, and it looks like Williams is headed for the cliffs. But these are all the tremendous amounts of money, in my world, being spent in 25, not in 24, not in 23, but in 25. Now, I don't know if that has meaning. The biggest one is the transfer of the National Party back to Donald Trump on 3/05/25 for $57,562.37. And then it sort of runs downhill from there, but it's all in the year 2025, in this year. Does that mean anything?
Well, in terms of that transfer to the RNC, Pete, the Trump campaign entered into a joint fundraising agreement with the state party, which is very common, by the way, in presidential campaigns, in order to raise money. And the agreement was that the money would go to the Republican National Committee, which of course Trump controlled and he needed to fund the committee. And so there's nothing wrong with that $57,000 to the RNC. They were required to send that on to the RNC.
Okay.
And so there's no problem there. But your point about a lot of these late expenditures, that's a good one. That right up he left office on March 29th, and the whole boatload of money went out the door in March before he left.
Way before, and right on the money too. On 3/29, is that his last day? 3/29.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
They paid Randy $17,493 on that day.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know what it means or what it doesn't mean, but and then they paid a lot of people right around that time too.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. How much further do you think this goes other than this talk show? I know it'll go on the Sheriff's show for Caplis on KHOW. What do you think? Do you think it goes any further than that?
Well, I think it's. Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
I don't think it's in the best interest of Brita or the new team that's taken over to continually fight this in the public. I think it is smart to put out, hey, this is what we inherited, this is what we're starting with, and close the chapter, move on. If there's any kind of tax implications or problems with what may have been done here, that'll be up for the IRS or whoever else to figure out. But I think it's important for Brita to say, this is the end of that administration. Here's what they left me. Just move forward and try to get things going in the right direction. It doesn't do any good to lob bombs back and forth. We've seen that for 2 years, and we didn't gain a lot of ground in the state of Colorado other than what individual candidates did on their own.
What coaches?
Dave Evans and CD8.
It sounds like
because of the state party.
But it sounds like they're already pot-shotting her anyhow.
Oh, that's never stopped.
Yeah.
That's never stopped since her run for chairwoman and since her win. Those pot shots are continuing to be taken, and but she just has to, she has to have thick skin and walk right past that. To use one of your terms, whistle past the graveyard and keep going.
I love you both. You made the show happen. You're brave. You got strength, and you stand up. And we need a lot more of that. We'll see what happens next. Sheriff Reams is hosting the Caplis show Monday. What time do you go on? At 3 or 4?
4 to 6. 4
to 6 on Monday. And Dick Wadhams will be appearing on a radio station near you with me. Thanks.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Dick. Thank
you.
And Sheriff, as always, thanks, you guys. Okay, so we go to open lines. People have been texting and chomping at the bit. 303-696-1971 is the phone number. I'm Peter Boyles, Radio Free Denver, 710 KNUS. You can look at everything we're talking about. It's up on our website, 710knus.com. Peter Boyles. Click on it. It opens up. Thanks to Mark Crowley. Hang on, everybody. It's going to get good. Mustang Sally. We've been jam lined since early this morning, and then we went to the guest, and now it's wide open lines again. 303-696-1971. It is your turn. Saturday morning, the third morning of May 2025. Good old 710 KNUS. The weather's beauty. Motorcycles outside, 77 the high, 78 on Sunday. The boys down at Devil's Head are throwing another one today. Get one of the guys up and talk. So we're watching this report. You had a chance. By the way, you can also comment on Pete Rose if you wish, because we blocked that off after the book. But the paperwork is there. The government speaks for itself in terms of its own audits about what has happened in the Republican Party in this disbursement of funds. And for all the moral high ground that I heard for the last 4 years, it's really interesting to see this come face to face. 303-696-1971. Danny Kaplis, the Kaplis Law Firm. By the way, lines are wide open, so if you're trying to get a call in before and got a busy, shoot straight in. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer that shares your values, and because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everybody else involved. Dan's dad was a cop. We talk about how he grew up. So he's dedicated the last 40 years of his life helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. And Dan's believed to be the only lawyer here in Colorado to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law, the official law partner now of the Nuggets and the Avs, both have big games tonight. Dan Kaplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Danny accepts righteous injury cases on percentage fee basis. He's my guy, he's my friend. Can represent good people from all walks of life without regard of ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, and we did one time with our family, and I say he came like the wind. He was the best. If you need Danny's help, 303-696-1971. 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit Caplis Law, CAPLAS Law.com. It's Dan Caplis at CAPLIS Law.com. 303-696-1971. Adam's cleaning up some calls. It is going to be interesting to see what happens next. We ready to go? All right, let's do this. All right, we start with Evan in Denver. Evan, you're on a radio show. Thanks and good morning.
Peter, yes, great show as always. Great discussion on the GOP and its floundering. I'll be very quick. Heard a strange number yesterday on the radio show, don't know which one, but I understand that the superintendent of public instruction in Denver has a salary of about $346,000 and some odd dollars, which I find kind of high. That's the basis, Poking fun at the Democrats is one thing, but coming across figures like this are a little shocking. Our governor, if my cell phone is correct, only makes about $90,000. Now, I may be out to lunch, but I wanted to bring this topic up because I find it quite shocking.
What does it have to do with this? Seriously.
Are you still on the GOP?
Yeah, I'm just saying what that's obviously, if this is misuse of funds, what does it have to do with the governor or the superintendent of schools? Serious question.
Well, I don't quite understand.
Well, why would you bring it up? I mean, why do you? What do you? It's like you're doing the magician's trick of misdirection. I'm no fan of the superintendent of schools. I'm no fan of Denver Public Schools. But why does it make something else okay?
It doesn't make anything okay.
Well, no, it doesn't.
The numbers just seem excessive for that type of position. That's just my concern.
Yeah, I mean, you can always look at people, and I agree with you, and especially in the public sector. But what I predicted to myself, and this is not a critique, it's just that when this started this morning, when it started, there would be what if, and what if doesn't count. The truth is, what these people have done, the state has lost. The state is no longer a red state. It's not even a maroon state. It's a blue state. And these were the people who were driving the truck when it happened. And that's where, like the superintendent for another day, but for today, when everybody moans and does something else about the Democratic Party running Colorado, you got to look at stuff like this and ask yourself how and why.
Yeah, I don't have an answer, which is maybe why I brought it up to you.
No, I mean, but you're with respect, you're trying to do misdirection, and don't deal with this. The state of Colorado has a superintendent like that because of what's happened to the state of Colorado.
Hardly agree.
And so, until some of this stuff gets straightened out, it's almost like I made a case the other day. The United States of America's multinationals are responsible for the People's Republic of China. The industrial base of this country went to China and built China. Now, everybody says, we're at war with China. No, you're at war with the multinational corporations that built China.
Absolutely.
The Democratic Party won because of people like what we're watching here, and then they put people in office like the guy you're complaining about. The multinational corporations created the PRC by taking the means of production out of this country, going to Brazil, going to the PRC, going to Pakistan, going to anywhere they went except Detroit, Pittsburgh, Birmingham, the places where the means of production belong. And so when I hear these, we're at war with China. No, you're at war with the multinationals if you're smart. And
yeah, one more step. Yeah, I didn't take it that level, but you're correct.
No, it's true.
And so we got the Rust Belt, and they got the factories. That's all there is to it.
They got the means of production, is what economists call it, and now it's in Brazil and Pakistan and Bangladesh and everywhere else, and it's not in Detroit, and it's not in Cleveland. And now these guys stand up and start We're at war with China. I listen to crap on the radio all the time, and it makes you want to put your finger down your throat. We did that. We created these people. We created the superintendent of public schools. We did.
That's true.
Take care. All right. Thank you. All right, sir.
Good day.
All right. 303-696-1971. Do you see it? Do you smell it? Do you smell it? Can you smell what the Rock is cooking? Can you smell the Vaseline? All right, where do we go? All right. Mike in Littleton. Hey, Mike, you're on the radio show. Good morning. Thank you.
Well, good morning, Peter. Hey, I called. I heard your report that you were highlighting there, or the report, and just want to say thanks. It's good to put that kind of information out there. I just think the vast amounts of money that are associated with both these parties. It's astounding, and the waste and potential corruption that's there is it's huge. It's one of those things that we need a Doge for, basically, to root it out.
But the difference is in our backyard, the Democrats are winning. In our backyard, the Democrats are winning. And all the Republicans, especially this side of the party, all they can do is attack the other side of the party. They don't want to go. Hey.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you totally. My sense is that I'm independent, or non-affiliated, whatever the term is. I'm kind of a conservative libertarian. The Republicans are not putting up candidates that have any positions that interest me. They're going after, here locally, they're going after like abortion and transgenderism and let's persecute the gays. And what we need is somebody focused on a frugal government.
Yeah. By the way, let me ask you a question I've asked other friends. Do you know any transgendered people?
No, I don't. I don't. I laugh because it's such a huge issue. I don't think the population is that big.
If I turn on talk radio one more time, Adam, do you know anybody? Let me ask Adam. Do you know anybody who's transgendered?
I do know a couple.
You know a couple?
Yep.
I knew one guy that worked at Channel 12. He was a cameraman at Channel 12. He was great. Loved him. Took him on the job with me all the time. He was brave. He was a good man. I mean, I should say a good woman. But, it gets down to that thing where we talk. If my son came to me and said, Dad, I'm a woman, I want you to call me Martha, and I'm going to wear a dress, right? Okay, you wear a dress, I'll call you Martha, but you're not a woman, but I'll do that because you're my son and I love you. If you want to be Martha, wear a dress, grow your hair, I'll do it if that's what you want. I've known one transgendered person in my life. And God, I'm so sick of it, transgender stuff, and I give you a list of things that it's no wonder the thing's tanking. It's like
no. I'm with you totally. I actually got involved this last election cycle with my local House Republican. The Republican House and Senate representatives for my district. I actually donated money to one of them, to the House guy. He was so good. He got it personally and came over and shook my hand. They had no higher up support from the Republican Party, and at least this House candidate that I supported, very intelligent, very good, focused on, could quote Frederick Bastiat, just somebody that was just really intelligent, and on top of the issues, and got destroyed 55 to 45% by a Democratic social worker.
Yeah.
And so there's no hope, at least in my mind here, for the Republicans. Until they start putting forth people that are principled, tell us what you're going to do, and then do it, but focus on the high level, not these minor, like you say, transgender or whatever.
I mean, you turn on talk radio and somebody's talking about transgenderism, and I'm going like, I'm an old man. I've been in this business probably too long. One transgender guy, and that was he was at Channel 12, and he worked on the crew. And he was great. We go out on shoots together. I couldn't ask for a better guy on the shoot. That's all I cared about. I didn't give a damn about what he wore.
You know what just occurred to me, too? I remember years ago, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago when you were still on the air full time, a guy called in. And he said, he said, I'm a true transgender. I'm paraphrasing.
And he came in.
And he went through the whole litany of, what the percentages of people that are truly that. And he said, all this is really degrading or misrepresenting the people that are truly have gender dysphoria.
Yeah, he came in the studio. We invited him in. He came in.
Did he?
Yeah, he became a friend. And, I again, it was like, I said, that must be heartbreaking to be born that way, to be, you're inside out or something. I said, and it would be, I guess I'd have to suspend belief, but you're not a woman. And this stuff about letting guys play sports in high school against women, God, the whole thing's despicable. And these poor fill in the blanks that really do, as you point out, actually have it. I bet they're just so ashamed of it. And it seems like everybody in Hollywood now has a transgender kid.
I know.
Everybody in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I
think it's being used, but that segment on your show, at least the call-in one,
it was great.
Was totally educational for me.
He came in.
And put it in perspective forever after. And the rest of it since then, it's all distortion and people trying to get publicity for themselves or name recognition,
And they paint these people. I mean, I saw some of that testimony at the House. Come on. I mean, don't put on a freak show and expect. I mean, it's like whatever happened to talk radio, where people start talking about the election being stolen, and middle of the road, intelligent people. Well, I'm not going to buy this. I'm not going to listen. And the same thing when they run these people up to testify, they look like the circuses in town. I'm going like, what do you expect to? Find, the straights in Lakewood are going to go, oh, yeah, look at that, Herbie. The circus is in town. I'm going to go vote for that. They don't, there's no grasp of reality.
Yeah, and meanwhile, our Tabor Amendment is under attack and going away quickly.
Yes, it is.
Our taxes are being increased every day by a new fee. And we sit here and we, like you say, watch the freak show, watch the circus. And hey, real quick, I heard Dave Williams actually was receiving $200,000 a year for chairman of the Republican Party.
Don't know.
There's, I just heard that in another show. There's 300 plus people on the Central Committee of the Republican Party. It tells me there's a vast bureaucracy. That they're not going to be able to get themselves together until they.
I got music. Mike, I got a poll. All right, coming back. Lines are open. 303-696-1971. Here we go. Pick 'em. Saturday morning, May 3rd, 2025, 710 KNUS. Going to be all right? 303-696-1971. 77 will be the high. 78 on Sunday, and rain comes back in on Monday. It was a good show so far. Let's see what happens. We have two lines open. We go to Nick in Denver. Nick, you're on the radio show. Good morning and thank you.
Thank you very much for taking my call. The Republican Party, I don't know where actually to begin the process to change the structure of the Republican Party so we can actually have a party that deals with the issues. As you well know, the unaffiliated are the largest political party in the state, which means that they're basically dissatisfied with both established parties, and we have a golden opportunity to do something, but we're not going to do it with this group of clowns that are running the place right now.
True. But the group of clowns are more like kamikaze pilots, or the people that say, I might not win, but I'm going to guarantee you don't win either.
Right.
And
right. They do not think strategically.
Oh.
They do not think strategically.
They're stupid. Frankly.
Yes, they are.
No.
Yes, I didn't want to say it, but I'm glad you said it.
No, they're stupid. I'm around them. And they're so locked into this mindset. Answer me, I've been punching this question in my head. Do you actually know any transgendered people?
No.
Why is transgenderism so important to the Republican Party?
Because because they're stupid, like you said, and they're wasting energy and focus on really minor issues and not focusing on the real big issues.
It's the devil's workshop or something. I don't know why. I mean, this is the same thing we went through with gay marriage. I know tons of gay men that are married, and women. They get along well. They seem to do a better job at it than I do.
Well, and not only that, but a lot of the gay people that I know are very quiet about it. They just want to be left alone. They don't want to be marching up and down wearing, feathers in their cap.
I agree.
And attracting attention to themselves. They just want to be left alone.
That's it.
Period.
Period. Now, why is transgenderism so important that it's on every conservative talk show once a day minimum, sometimes the whole show? I don't get it.
Because, as you said, they're stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
They don't think about what are the real issues facing the average American, the average person living in this state. They don't want to talk about that. The cost of living, all that stuff. They're just stupid.
And then I heard one the other day. I'm driving along in the automobile, and some on air behind the microphone starts talking about choice, which is the great cop-out for the religious right. Can I ask you a question? Legitimate question.
Yeah.
Nick, do you remember your choice day? Because I don't.
I don't. I didn't even know there was a choice day.
See,
I know there's a day for everything else, but...
How come I didn't have a choice day, but my gay friend had to have a choice day, and he chose men? I'm serious as a heart attack. I mean, I tell you the day I remember. What was the name of the first girl you kissed?
I know her name, and
she probably lives in.
Gone,
yeah, don't. If she lives in Denver, don't. But
I have no idea where she lives.
Okay, how old were you?
Old enough to know better.
That's right. I was at a ball field playing ball, and these guys, this girl came to the backstop, and guys kissed her. I kissed her. Whole world changed. I mean, I never thought I wanted to kiss the third baseman. I thought I wanted to kiss. Her name was Judy, was her first name, and I thought, hot damn, something's going on here.
Well, did anything come of that? Anything materialize from that, or?
Yeah, I mean, they became part of that trifecta of cars and music. No, it's
That's when you turned transgender? When you got that first kiss?
Exactly. When I got that first kiss, I said, geez, I'd like to be a girl.
Now, I have a very quick question for you. And
quick.
I
Go ahead.
What do you think are the first couple things that people have to do to reform the Republican Party, to change, to get rid of this group of clowns and get some serious people in there?
Honestly, get religion out of the party.
Yes. But how do you get rid of the entrenched people? They're there elected. They're there because.
I mean, if you want to talk about my opinion, that's my opinion. But there are people that tell me that God got Donald Trump elected. So that's a whole theory of history that God did it. God gave that land to the Jews. God gave them the land. God got Donald Trump elected. God did this. God did that. And okay, I have to just that's fine. But
well, I believe it might be true, but don't keep talking about it.
It's a hard one to prove. But it's okay. It's okay. But if you bang, like taking some poor transsexual and beating him over the head with a Bible, what good does it do?
None.
Yeah. I mean, they beat.
They don't. The Republicans don't think strategically. Well, the Democrats have, and that's why we are where we are.
See, but I think the Democrats got snuffed. Two things happened in November. The Democratic Party and mainstream media, heritage media, both are done.
Yes, they are.
And so.
Yes, they are.
So, but now, Trump is floundering a little bit, and the Dems are waiting for the off year, and.
Right.
Like I said, I've been to town. I've seen the elephant. I've seen this stuff before. I really have.
Well, it goes back to what Churchill said. Democracy is the worst form of government. But it's blah blah blah. Yeah. But it's better than what's in second place.
Yeah, they talk about
better than the alternative.
Yeah, they say the same thing about capitalism. It's not always great, but it's better than anything else, and that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, so I have a very quick question.
All right.
What specifically can concerned citizens do to start the change in the Republican Party?
What's happened in Colorado, they just turn away, walk away from them. I mean, this was a red state, and it was destroyed. It was like, go back to the days of Bill Armstrong and those guys, and they ran this state. This was their state. And
so how do we get rid of the current cast of character of idiots?
We just did, and I'm reading the numbers. But doesn't mean they're gone. They're already attacking the new chairman, and I don't know. I mean, they're not smart enough to quit doing this to themselves. Like your dad said, don't make me pull this car over. And that's how I feel about it. My dad could hit the right kid in the back seat while he was driving. That's a skill.
That is a skill.
You got to hit three kids in the back seat, and the old man could hit the right one. Driving.
That's right.
With a beer between his legs.
So again, what specifically can just the average Joe start the process to change things around?
Well, I don't know.
Other than
we're gonna try. We tried to get this new chairperson on the radio show today, and she declined. She could do it by phone. I don't know. Maybe we are, the gray eminence. Maybe we're the place that we're the elephant's graveyard. You come on this radio show and you go and die. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I just know that what I watched for these last 4 or 5 years has just been terrible, and now they're what they are, and according to what the sheriff said, the guy cracks her in the back of the head walking away after he got beat. That's and maybe when his followers look at him finally and go, geez, you got all this money? What you do with it? That won't happen because they're true believers. Step back, true believers. It's not going to rain.
Maybe things have to get really, really bad.
They are.
Well, but, I mean, really, really bad for most countries is there's no food on the table.
No, Colorado's. Take care of yourself. Next up, right after this, 710 KNUS, I'm Peter Boyles. Hang on. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a Saturday, May the 3rd, 2025, 710 KNUS. We're Denver Stock Station, 77 and warm today, 78 warmer on Sunday. The guys down at Devil's Head are cooking tacos. All's well in the world. We have two lines open, 303-696-1971. The show began this morning, big thanks to Mark Crowley. He put up this report, the Colorado Republican Committee. It's the governmental report, financial summary. And we put it up. You can load it down, take it apart, read what you're looking for. But what it really is I think the highlight part of it is disbursements. And as you may know, over time, and it's been pretty intense stuff, Dave Williams, who is now the outgoing GOP chair, facing all the scrutiny over allegations of improperly using state party resources and funds for personal gain, particularly in relationship to his campaign. Complaints were filed with the Federal Election Commission, and it went on from there. It includes the concerns about his access to state party email lists and potential misuse of volunteer exemptions, on and on and on. Well, the report came down, and thanks to Mark Crowley, it's up. 710 KNUS, Peter Boyles, 710KNUS.com, Peter Boyles, the Republican Party. And who was getting money? Well, the most interesting thing, I suspect, is that Dave Williams is paying himself to consult himself. And you can read all of that and where big money is being spent on lawyers. So we did that. And then we did a book on Pete Rose that's, I think, very good. And then we were joined by Dick Wadhams and Sheriff Steve Reams about their thoughts about this FCC complaints and what these people are all about. So now we're in open lines, 303-696-1971. We start to Wendy. Hey, Wendy, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good morning. Yeah, that's what it is, something. I'm guessing, I agree with the sheriff that a lot of these things written to his whatever were probably done that way so that it was under a business expense, and it is for taxes. I agree with that part. The other part is, by the way, Dave, I like the kind of music you like. It's good. But what bothered me, because I left Colorado for a few years, and I came back, and all of a sudden it was dead. It was dead. And I have a job where I go from Colorado Springs to Fort Collins. And I'm just one of those people that talk to people. And it didn't matter if it was a Democrat or a Republican. When this election was going on earlier, the people I was talking to did not like the high taxes. They did not like, and back to the trans thing, a lot of people don't like that when it interferes with their kids. They didn't like it being pushed on their kids. And they didn't like boys and girls sports. I don't like that one either, because I'm old enough to remember, I was one of the first groups of girls that was in shop class, and I was proud of it. Now it's like, these people are, and I was a tomboy growing up, and when I played football with the boys, they never hurt me. These girls are getting hurt. I don't like this. I don't know what the whole thing is, but I don't like it. But what's bothered me the most is there's no excitement in Colorado, but there was. I think Dave Williams screwed up the worst when he was just so hard right. And I don't mean you got to go to being, but he was pushing people away.
That's true. That's exactly what happened. And if they couldn't push him away, they were going to keep him away legally. And
right, and it was wrong.
It's beyond wrong. But that was the way that they could control the outcome of all of their elections. They could corral the people inside and use them to achieve their own goals. And one of the really
But we lost over and over again.
Didn't matter.
it should have mattered. What matters.
What's one of the many definitions of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, thinking each time it's going to be a different outcome.
Of course.
And so they ran the same kind of candidates. They said the same kind of things. They campaigned on the same kind of issues, and they kept getting clipped. And they either weren't smart enough, whatever it was, they weren't. And so they were beat. And now...
But people were so open to change because of not even... Well, no one. Everybody saw Biden for what he was.
The state of Colorado itself changed. The state of Colorado became a magnet for libs, literally all over the western part of the country. The liberals came here, but it really gets back to the last across the state. You got Bill Owens.
Right.
I mean, you had Nighthorse Campbell. You had a few Republicans that held statewide office, and they seemed to stumble, each and every one of them, again and again and again. And people passed away that had power. People got fed up with it and got away from it, and it was taken over. The vacuum was filled, as it always will be, by crazy people, and crazy people ran the party. And for instance, just the whole idea of transsexuality or anything else that seems to be the front burner right now, and somehow the devil is in a transsexual position, and on and on. And I mean, just all this stuff is just nuts. And so a reasonable human being would look at this and go, no, I don't think so. But on the other hand, that's why Jared Polis played it way smart. Polis is the smartest politician in Colorado. Hands down. He played it right in the middle. He's not in the middle, but he played it in the middle. He won the election, and he beat some ridiculous people that were easily beaten. And so now we're where we are. And
what do you know about this new head? Does she have the gumption to get people excited?
I don't know. We invited her on this morning, and she didn't come on, and I've never met her. I've seen her on TV. I've heard her on the radio. She was on with Mandy Connell. I heard her on KOA. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to meet her, see what happens, and we'll see what happens from there. But I appreciate your time. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks. Be safe. Thanks. We go to Tracy. Tracy, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you.
It is afternoon. How are you doing today, Pete?
I'm really doing well. Thank you.
Well, that's good to hear. You're getting ready to go bike riding, huh?
Absolutely, in about a half an hour, 45 minutes, yes.
Hey, you ever take a ride up to the old Rocky Mountain Saloon up there on 66 and I-25?
Those days are over.
You don't know none of those guys up that way or what?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, but I just say that those days of going to the bar are over. They've been over.
Well, you could drink a near beer, but...
Nah,
but
it's
anyway,
just over.
Well, I tell you what, my comment on Pete Rose was, I think it was like 77 or 78. When I was a little kid, I went to a Houston Astros game, and they were playing the Cincinnati Reds, and I had a Astros pennant, and I had all the Astros sign it, and also Pete Rose signed it.
Oh, wow.
I wished I would have hung on to that, man.
This book is it's not a baseball book. It's a story of a man rising and falling, and baseball is the conduit that he travels in. But he's clearly a degenerate gambler. He's doing drugs. The best line in the book, and I thought the guy's just a great writer. He said Pete Rose started out as a great baseball player who happened to be a gambler. He ended up...
Well, you've been around the block yourself, I mean, life is life, and he lived his life, and we all remember him, it ain't no shame on him.
Yeah, it is, because he wanted nothing better than to be in baseball's Hall of Fame. He really wanted it. And
well, he is. I mean, we're talking about him anyway. I mean, he's there regardless.
We're only talking about him because of the book that we had on the air this morning. He spent, according to the way this guy writes, and I think it's spot on, then they get him into the commissioner's office, and the evidence is so overwhelming that he's gambling and he's with organized criminals, and he's laying off bets, and he's got a private life that's not.
Well, you can see why he didn't tell the truth then, you know. I mean, at least he didn't throw him under the bus,
no,
you know.
All the guy had to do was when the commissioner said, "Did you bet on baseball?" And
hey, I got a comment on Randy Corcoran and
take it to them. Take it to them. My point is
the only thing I was going to say about is all this sexuality stuff and everybody making publicity out of these things.
About what? No one even know. No one. Look, this book goes as deep into his private life as anything. I mean, he was never straight with any of his wives. He was who he was. But when he gets in front of they're going to forgive all of that, because they're like he makes the case. Let me finish. He makes the case about all the different ball players that are in they're in Cooperstown, and they did a lot of things, in many cases far worse than Pete Rose. But what they did was, when Pete Rose was asked by the commissioner, "Did you bet on baseball?" and they had all the evidence that he had been betting on baseball, and he sat in the commissioner's office and he said no. And then they set this guy on him as an investigator. His guy's last name is Dowd, D-O-W-D, and he dug it all up. And he dug up everything. He dug up cocaine. He dug up gambling. He dug up women. He dug up everything and everything. All the gambling, racetrack gambling, football gambling. I mean, just everything. And Sports Illustrated did the story, and it was over. It was over.
Well, I just remember him from when I was a little kid. He seemed like he was an all right.
Oh, listen,
you know, I mean,
I bet I
was born in '69, so you know what, like '77 or '78. You know how old I was. You know, so. Well, you know, I didn't know about any of those things, and he was cool enough to sign the Astros.
We didn't know. That's the point of it. We've talked about this many times. You don't know. I mean, Hollywood used to hire these people that would protect the private lives of movie stars. There's a great story about Babe Ruth. I've read it a couple of different places, that the sports writers rode the trains with the Yankees, and there wasn't that many major league teams. And so they said, down the aisle of the train car comes the Babe being chased by a woman with a knife. Neither one of them have any clothes on. And one sports writer says to the other, there's another story that we will not cover. And so now, and I think it really follows in after Watergate is when I think all of this begins, that they really do exposés on ball players, and they do exposés on, I mean, look, the media, what it was at the time, radio, television, and the newspapers, they covered up for Jack Kennedy. They knew what Jack Kennedy was doing. They never wrote about it. They sat in the train cars when FDR was with his mistress. I mean, they knew stuff, and they didn't make a big deal out of it. But
I say this, Pete. You know, I mentioned the state seal of Colorado, and you're aware of that, and what the state motto is. You know, it seems like Colorado's kind of put itself between a rock and a hard place, you know, with the archdiocese and knowing what you know about the dollar bill and in God we trust and things, and their attack on Christianity. And I really don't hear a whole lot of Catholic people out there attacking them. You know, it seems
attacking
like,
who?
you know,
attacking who?
Well, they don't attack homosexuals. You know, it seems like, but this is the definition of insanity. You know, you're doing the same thing over again. You know, trying to produce it. The Bible's not going to change.
All right.
You know, so you know that's just a simple fact.
Actually, it has changed many times, but
Well, you know, there is different translations and things like that.
No. There's parts there's parts taken out of it. Look, the Bible has changed. All right, go ahead. Last question. Go ahead.
All right. Well, let me say this: life begets life, and it's really simple, and it's not a insult or to bring harm on people, but it you know, life reproduces itself, and that's what's really important. You know, and it's
you got it. All right, man.
All right.
303-696-1971. I'm Peter Boyles. This is Radio Free Denver, good old 710 KNUS. It is now the afternoon version, 16 after the hour 12. Lines are open, 303-696-1971. I don't know how to respond to stuff like that, but somebody asked, you know, what's wrong with the Republican Party? Well, it's better question now is going to be what's wrong with the Democrats, because they're in trouble, with the exception of here in Colorado. Now, the off year is coming. That will be something to see what happens. If Donald Trump runs over top of them in the off year and pulls ahead again, that's a green light. Right now, if you look, now again, do what you want to do with the weigh and measuring, the scales, the approval rating. Donald Trump's having a really hard time. He has more people disapproving of him in this country than approving of him in this country. But they're also in this moment. He said it's going to get tough. It's going to get tough. And you knew it was going to get tough. And if you were going to build the tariff walls and you were going to regain the means of production, it was going to get tough. So there's that to deal with. And plus there's all these other things. We were talking about it the other day at the 100 days. He said two things that he could do standing on his head. One was to end both of those wars, the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine. He's not been successful. A lot tougher than he thought. He thought he could walk in, he could talk to his friend Vladimir, he could straighten things out in Israel, and that didn't happen. But they stopped people coming into this country, and so the mainstream finds little pieces of people that he did that wrong, he did this individual wrong, that individual wrong, but they have indeed stopped the flow into this country. The next thing, of course, is the tariffs. Now, are we headed for a depression? That's the big line that you're using almost every day. The depression is coming. The depression is coming. Perhaps. But if you study capitalism, you know capitalism is elastic. Capitalism expands and capitalism contracts. It's like it must expand. It must contract. You can't have a planned economy. Marxism is a planned economy, 7-year plan, 5-year plan, great leap forward, and they fail. They fail. Capitalism is freeform. Socialism tries to control some things, but sort of flops out too. But capitalism expands and it contracts. If you're not willing to look at it that way, the stock market rises and falls. It almost must, and a president cannot give you a good economy in spite of what was said about Bill Clinton. He gave us a great economy. No, he did not. If a president has the power to give a great economy, then why, oh why, didn't Herbert Hoover use it? Because it isn't there. Now, they can screw economies up, but, like Lyndon Johnson, but they can't give you a good economy. Your turn. Come on, 303-696-1971. There you go. Hold on. Huh? 710 KNUS, Saturday afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Here we go. 303-696-1971. May the 3rd. 77 high today and 78 on Sunday and Monday. 60 degrees. It was a good show this morning, and the Pete Rose book was excellent. The guys were good. Let's go back here. Gary's on the show. You're on the show. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Pete. You know, I've been listening to your program, and when you were talking about Dave Williams, you were talking about how he cut himself a check, and
I didn't say. I know. Whoa! I never said he cut himself a check.
Or I'm sorry, they paid Fox,
yes,
his company.
His firm, that's right, his consulting firm.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's this smart, but I know this. Maybe it was Dick Wadhams who said he wasn't. He said he wasn't going to be taking a salary, and that may be a way to get paid, but not a quote salary.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, sure. That's possible. Sure, of course. Yeah.
And I remember distinctly, I used to listen to Randy's show, and at one point in time, remember John Eastman lost his license?
Yes, I do.
And he, so he wanted to continue to do work, especially around closing the primary, but he couldn't be the lawyer. So I remember Randy talking about how he was going to basically just sort of stand in and, file papers as a lawyer on behalf of Eastman, and each of them were going to be paid $25,000.
Wow.
And it was also disclosed that he talked about, I think it was Kyle Clark had reported this, and Randy made a point of saying, I haven't been paid. It's an obligation, but I haven't been paid the money. And that may be why it was a deferred payment. They deferred paying.
Well, there's an item on this disbursements that's at the very end, and it's for, and I'll just read it to you. You can read it for yourself if you want to go online, 710 KNUS, and look at it. But it's at the very end of their time, and it's, here, I'll read it to you. Let me keep looking, Peter, you'll find it. But it's disbursements for, here it is. It took place on 3/25/25, which I think was at the very, very end of his term. And it's Colorado Republican Committee, Fox Group, Colorado, deferred payment 3/25/025, $10,000 deferred. And that sounds like whatever that sounds like.
Yeah, and it's obvious as Dave is walking out the doors, he's got to get these payments out the door. And what would be interesting is, I wonder if Randy ever contributed to Dave Williams.
I don't know. That's not for me. But three things happened on the 29th. An organization called Tactical Data Solutions. And it says data services also deferred on 3/29/25 for $10,343.90. Next, Colorado Republican Committee Fox Group Ltd. deferred payment 3/25/25 for $10,000. And then the Bellator Defense LLC Security Services Dinner and Reorg Meeting 3/29/25, $9,850. And then Hamden and PIG OTT, Colorado Lawyer Trust Legal Services, on 3/29/25 for $9,500. Let me turn a page and see if there's another one for 3/29. Now the next one is 3/3.
It's obvious to me these are just payments that need to go out the door before he, no longer was chairman.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, no one is asking anybody to step up and answer, but the Fox Group, because clearly that belongs to Dave.
Yeah, And Pete, can I ask your opinion on something about Donald Trump?
Sure, if you want.
I think he's a bully, and I think, like most bullies, they're very insecure. And I don't know, I know you don't follow the news, but at least 3 times that I witnessed, he has said a gallon of gas is now $1.98. He said that 3 times. And you got to wonder, I mean, anybody who's watching the show that buys gas knows that that's a lie, but he keeps saying it. And I'm thinking, why does he do this? Why does he just blatantly lie? And if he's going to lie about that, what else is he lying about? And this is the only thing I can come up with. And then I'd like to ask you why you think he would do something as ridiculous.
I've never heard him say that, so I...
Oh, it's well reported. If you Googled Trump says gas at $1.98 a gallon, you'll see all the stories about it.
All right.
So just believe me when I'm not lying to you. Why do you think he would say something? There's a reason. I mean, he has handlers, he has people around him. Why does he say these things?
Adam just told me through my headset that he said it at least twice. Guys, I didn't hear him say it, so in what context? I'm not trying to cop out. This first time. Adam, why did he say it?
That I have no idea.
You're saying that on the air?
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of other factor that he knows that we don't, or he's just wrong. The lowest I've been able to find anywhere is $2.11.
Oh, okay. Fellas, I don't know. I really don't. I don't have an answer.
The best theory I came up with was this. Remember when he said, if he went out on Broadway and shot somebody, people would still vote for him?
Yeah.
This is a version of that. He's saying, they know I'm lying to them by telling them this $1.98, but they're still going to support me.
I mean, that's true with almost anything and anybody in situations where you know that this person is wrecking the radio station, but they still support the person because they can get away with what they want to get away with. I generally have an opinion. And I'm not trying to dog you. I just have never heard that or never seen it. So I'll look at it, see what I can find.
Thanks, Pete. Thank
you. Where do we go next? 303-696-1971. Cleaning up calls. Saturday afternoon, May the 3rd, 2025. We'll see what happens next. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, let's go here. I don't have an answer for that question. Jay's in Castle Rock. Hey, Jay, you're on the show.
I have a theory. I don't know if this is truth or not, but that $1.98 might be the price of gas before taxes. Each state has different taxes on their gas. Some have larger taxes than others, Colorado being one of them. And so maybe that's the price of gas without tax.
That's the first I've heard of it.
If you wanted an answer, that would be an answer.
Now, Jay, I don't have an answer because it's the first I heard of it. So I have to...
No, he wanted an answer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that may be the price of gas without tax. That's all. He doesn't lie. He does exaggerate, though.
Well, show me a politician, and I'm not defending Donald Trump, but just show me a politician that doesn't.
No.
I mean...
Yeah, but there's different areas of lies. There's exaggeration lies, and then there's just flat out, it's not like you keep your doctor,
No, I agree.
You want your doctor, you keep your doctor.
No, and I agree with you again. It's people, when they look at politicos, we were talking about sports this morning with Pete Rose. I've done minimum sports reporting or talk radio. But in all the thousands of years I've done it, I never interviewed a ball player that's playing on a Sunday football game. I've never said, how are you going to do tomorrow? And I've never heard them say, I'm going to break my leg and we're going to lose by 6. Never heard it. And it was always, we're going to win. And so even when we were looking at overwhelming losses in a political race, the guy that that's going to lose keeps saying, and we're going to win tomorrow. And you're going like, no, you're not. You're going to get clipped. But I don't know how to respond to any of that anymore, except it's just them.
Well, I heard about Pete Rose. He never bet against himself.
No, he never did. That's his defense, was when he bet on baseball, he never bet against himself. And if you remember who else got in trouble with that was the Green Bay Packers running back, and then well, come on, Peter, make your mind work. Who was Paul Hornung and Alex Karras? They bet on themselves, and they paid for it. Karras had to sit out. I think they're both in the Football Hall of Fame, though, aren't they? I think.
Karras, I'm not sure about the other one.
But the part of the book that the guy makes the stretches the most strength was, he's sitting in the commissioner's office, the National League, the American League, and the baseball commissioner. And the guy, it's really a friendly conversation, and the guy bears down on him and says, Pete, did you bet on baseball? And all he would have had to have said was yes, but he didn't do it. And then they put this guy, Paul Dowd, D-O-W-D, on him as an investigator, and they just turned up everything. Cocaine, women, the horse track, the high lie, everything. And it's sad. It's a sad book.
That is.
So.
Enjoy your show, Peter. I remember back in the BZ days.
We talk about him a lot, but that's kind. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, we go to Jim in Littleton. Jim, you're on the radio show. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, Peter.
Thanks,
man. I was just going to talk to you about the Trump just announced the amendment bill with Ukraine.
Yes.
So I think that was a strategic move on the part to try to get Putin off the dime.
Well, the way that
make a decision.
I agree with you, but the way it was presented during the campaign was, I solve this tomorrow. I'll fix this tomorrow. And the same thing about Gaza. And anybody that's done any reading or any in-depth said, I don't know, man, stepping into Gaza and getting that done in one day, that was going to be tough.
Well, anybody with more than 2 brain cells understood he was hyperbolic on that.
I agree.
So we understood, but his point was that the true point was it didn't happen under his watch.
And it would have been worse. It would have been worse if Harris would have been reelected.
Oh my God! I don't know if we'd have a country.
Well, I know that they, at least Trump. One of the things I admire about Trump is he'll go talk to anybody, sort of grab them by the lapels and talk to them, and I never saw Biden do that.
Well, they said that Biden never spoke to Putin after the invasion. I think that's not necessarily true, but I will say that we just didn't know who was running the show with Biden, and he definitely had a bunch of warmongers in there that kind of wanted to just feed the
man, sure.
There was a mentality that we could take Russia down by just using Ukraine as a proxy. I think that was a mentality both on the Republican and the Democrat side.
That was insane.
And they realized
absolutely insane.
Well, you're playing with nuclear weapons there, and I just never could understand it. It could have been avoided. This war could have been totally avoided if you understand the history of the country. And to say that, okay, we'll be honest with you, Zelensky's in power now because of what we did in that country before on the Orange Revolution. We definitely played a role of overthrowing a democratically elected Ukrainian government. Pure and simple. You cannot deny it. It's a fact.
Oh, sure.
And so with that being the case, Putin has a right to say, you want to
hold on through a break. You want to hold on through a break, and I'll bring you back.
Sure.
I put him on hold. Give him a chance to do it. Saturday afternoon, everybody. 77 the high, 78 tomorrow. Peter Boyles, 38 minutes after 12 on a Saturday. Afternoon, everybody. There's one line open on a Saturday, 710 KNUS. It's 12:44, 16 before the hour, and we put Jim on hold. We'll go back to Jim. Jim, wrap it up, and then we'll jump to another call, but thank you for waiting.
Well, I'm just going to say, I think it is a brilliant ploy what Trump has done concerning this mineral deal. It has locking us in now with Ukraine, which now the ball's in Putin's court. If he expects that to take over the Ukraine, that's not going to happen anymore.
Well, but I don't think Donald Trump's going to supply weaponry to Zelensky either.
I think he's already said that. No, I just heard on the news he's reopened the shipments that he had put stop are now being now they're starting up again. Then
it's new. If you
I've
just
heard all those things have changed. I just heard it on the news.
Okay, no, if you just heard it now, then that's a switch. It's new because he had shut it off.
And well, I think one of the parts that was not said, we were sharing our intelligence concerning of where Russian troops were positioning, which was such a boost to
that was under Biden.
And he shut that down.
Yeah, Biden.
And he shut that down. Trump shut that down.
That's right.
And now it's opened up again. So these things have changed. I think Putin recognizes that his day, he has been trying to drag this out in order to get more territory to increase his bargaining. And now that's going to stop. And now he needs to either show what he's willing to negotiate to end this war, or it's going to go on. And if that's the case, things can be ratcheted up on Russia. And believe me, you know, if we think Putin's bad, we don't know who's in the wings taking over from him.
Well,
so that's another thing.
I'm not so. I mean, I have my sense is Putin comes out on top.
Well, of course, in this situation, he's got all the cards right now, as the saying goes. I mean, he's got a population that's 5 times Ukraine.
Sure.
So he's got so much more to draw on. And also, I think they've learned. But the fact of the matter is, I think people have become more wary. Russia is not in a great situation. They're hoping, you know, economically they can bring themselves back from this whole situation.
There's also renewed friendship pacts with the PRC. Careful. I mean, I just like George Washington's right. Stay away from these people. Stay as far away from these people as you can. Let them do it to themselves and let them figure it out. But there were 2 promises that were made. One was how quickly this war would end and how quickly he would settle the issue in Gaza. And they were both really, really, really difficult. And so we will see.
I'll say this. There's a fear on my part that he's going to war with Iran, which in my world would be the biggest mistake.
Even worse.
You know, if he can't settle these two, why would he now escalate into a third war?
You can't.
I mean, this is the insanity, and I think he recognizes that. But there's people like Lindsey Graham that want nothing more than to. I mean, that guy. I mean, there's not a war I don't think he would not want to get in America involved with.
They had all the B-52s lined up, and they were talking about the 52 strikes, and I'm thinking to myself, if there is an ounce of decency in these people, don't do that. And
I'm just going to say we cannot. If we allow these people, these warmongers, to run our foreign policy, America will be destroyed in the end. We will be destroyed. We will be bankrupt. And we will be hated around the world.
Almost at now. Thanks. Be safe. Thank you. All right. We go to Adam. Adam, you waited. Appreciate it. You're on the show. Thank you.
Sure. Probably 20 years ago, my wife and I were in Las Vegas, and we were walking from Mandalay Bay to the Luxor. There's a hallway, and shops on both sides. And as we was walking along, I looked over, and there was Peter Boyles. I mean,
who?
Pete Rose.
Yes. He signed.
Signing autographs.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not look enthusiastic or happy about it at all. And it was just sad.
That was towards the end of his life. He married a couple of different times, and then he went out to the Luxor. and he was a greeter. And the the casinos have their tradition of having, like Joe Louis was a greeter. They have different guys. They were greeters, old retired athletes, oftentimes, in a bad place, and they worked as greeters. And then I think then COVID came. No, I'm trying to, because it was in the book that he was out there, but he ended up. He was no longer. Oh, you know what it was? He got exposed. He was running around with a very, 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 very young girl, and that got in the Vegas papers, and so he got dismissed from being the greeter, and he ended up. He would go to card shows, and he had his own little spot in Vegas. You're absolutely right, and that's in the book. And he would sit there. I think it was $20 a shot, and he'd autograph baseball cards and/or glossy pictures of himself, and just got worse and worse. And he died in his sleep when he was 84 years old, and just didn't wake up. But he was despondent. His kids stayed away from him. He had a bunch of different kids from different women. I mean, it's a really sad ending. It's like the guy said, Brian said, it's like he's Greek tragedy, Greek comedy. It's almost a Shakespearean, but he at one time was so good, and then to see him fall like that.
It was sad.
But you did see him. I mean, that's where that's what he did. He was.
But that was long. That was probably 20 years ago.
Oh yeah. He's been gone a while. But what I think is interesting is getting down to that question: does he belong in the Hall of Fame? And I say he does. Not that I'm any authority, but and it's been done by people that are really great sports writers. When they start to write about the private lives of guys like Ty Cobb and people like that, and they're horrible. And he mentions Tris Speaker in the book, but he just in passing. So when I asked him during the interview, what had Tris Speaker done, and he said that it's believed that he fixed a game, that he was in on fixing games, and he said not because of the Black Sox. It was the Black Sox. Tris Speaker was after the Black Sox, and got caught. So they live with this, at least according to what he was saying in the book, is they live with this ongoing shame of the game being rigged or the game being fixed, and it's the great fear of professional baseball. And so now it's Pete Rose, and he'll never get in the Hall. This guy says he'll never get in. What are your not that your thoughts are about as equal to mine? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think they should have let him in the Hall of Fame before he passed. I mean, whatever he did, and I guess he'd call it his private life, had nothing to do with what a great baseball player he was.
And he never bet against himself. He never bet that the Sox would lose. But the interesting thing, I didn't know this either, that he lay in state in Riverfront Stadium. They had him in a coffin, and they laid him out in the home of the Reds, Riverfront. And
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either until I read it. But that's where he lie in state. So it tells you something. Great call, man. Thanks, Adam. Thank you very much.
Sure, you bet.
All right. So we got about a minute. We're out of here. Thank you. That was a good show, and let's see if there's any repercussions from this. Anybody wants to come on and talk, I welcome anybody that wants to come on and talk about this money that the GOP seem to want to allocate to others. Your calls are welcome. Your appearances are welcome. I'd love to have you here. You go to the website, 710knus.com, Peter Boyles, and you can read the entire report, the Colorado Republican Committee report. So that's that, Adam. Thank you. Thank you to Dick Wadhams, and thank you to the sheriff, and really thank you The book is excellent, and the book is entitled, again, Charlie Hustle, The Life and Times of Pete Rose. Take care of yourselves. Have a good afternoon. Have a good week.